Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast where I talk about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as I talk about other video game companies too. Now, speaking of two, Switch 2, right? I titled the last episode Switch Off, so this one's the Switch 2, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I'm going to title it. I don't know what I'm going to title it. I might title it that just because it's weird and stupid and cheesy and whatever else. It's because it's a bad name. That's why I might title it that. Hello everyone. Of course, today is the 17th episode. It's a very significant episode, not based on the number, because 17 is by no means significant. Like, I can't think of anything at all important about 17. I could Google it. I should say, what is important about the number 17? In numerology, it's often associated with leadership, independence, and self-determination. And religiously, it can symbolize victory and perfection. Well, victory indeed, because guess what? The greatest victory of the last... Actually, there's been quite a few victories, if we're being honest with ourselves. Of course, the biggest and most significant of all victories of the last week has been the Switch 2. The Switch 2, it came out. Turns out, I know, crazy, believe it or not. I've been counting down since basically the start of this podcast. Maybe I've started a few episodes in. I've been counting down until the launch of the Switch 2. And finally, the count can end. Not all counts, though, because guess what? 35 days till Donkey Kong Bonanza. Oh my gosh. 35 days. Anyways, that's not quite as long as I've been counting the Switch 2 down, but it's quite a long time, if we're being honest. I talked a lot last week about how I didn't know when I was going to get the Switch 2. I didn't know if I was going to get it anytime soon. I wouldn't be talking about it day one. It was, I got the Switch 2. I got the Switch 2. It was an early birthday surprise gift. So now I have acquired the Switch 2. I actually got it on launch day. So this was officially the first time that I've had a Nintendo console on launch day. This is very, very exciting. Words cannot describe how, surprised and how happy I have been with the Switch 2. I've just been living life. Things have been great. Now, I will say, I have not played it as much as I would have imagined. In my wildest dreams, I was like, I'm going to get the Switch 2, and I'm going to be playing it, all day, every day. I'm going to get, in the first week, I'm going to knock out, 50 hours, and, it's going to be insane. No, I would say in the last week I've probably played maybe 10. It's not really, it's probably less than many weeks. But that's because it's still been busy times. We're here at the end of the school year. I know most people are out of school. I live in an area that, for some reason, the districts around me, we all get out in June. Actually, when you get to high school, you get out a little bit earlier. In the lower grade levels, you actually don't get out till the end of June. But in high school, you get out earlier in June. And then the last couple weeks there are all for final exams, state sanctioned. Sanctioned? I don't know if that's the word. Anyway, state exams. So, the local exams, those are still while classes are going on. But the statewide, those exams are in the couple weeks following. So I actually won't be fully done with everything school-related until the 25th, I think, is the last school function for which I must participate. I think. I don't know, and I could be wrong. There may be something... Actually, I think there might be something on the 26th. But anyway, we've still got a couple weeks, about 2 weeks left for anything. But for actual classes proper, you're watching this on Friday. I have one more real day of school. You're watching this the day after my second to last day, because Monday, we have to go in Monday. I don't know who decided that was a good idea, but somebody did, so for whatever reason, that's happening, so. But after that, I will, suddenly have a lot more opportunities to play the Switch 2. Now, I still have stuff going on during those couple weeks, so things are still happening and all that, but, at the end of the day, things are gonna, we're gonna have more time here soon. So, of course, today I will be talking, a ton about the Switch 2, but then also I'll be talking quite a bit about Summer Games Fest, specifically the main show on Friday, and the Xbox Games Showcase, whatever, I don't know, I think it's called the Xbox Games Showcase, whatever it's called, who knows what that's called, Nobody actually cares. That is on Sunday, or that was on Sunday. So I'm going to be talking about those two things. And there are a couple things I might mention that were at other shows, but they're not so important. I didn't actually watch any of the other shows. I watched snippets of a lot of those shows. I skimmed through some things. I skimmed through the skimmed through the PC show. I skimmed through Day of the Devs. I skipped through one of the things on Saturday. I don't remember what it was called. I think it was the Australia New Zealand one. Because I just happened, I was busy that day, but I happened to have a quick break there where I was like, ooh, I should pull this up and see what's been announced so far. So, I did not watch all of these shows. I don't really intend to go back and watch some of these shows, but some of them I might, I don't know. I'm not going to watch any of the shows I missed. I'm perfectly content with having watched the main show and the Xbox show and snippets of the other ones. So, that's fine by me. If anybody who tuned into my live streams, I did the live stream of the regular Summer Games Fest and I did the live stream of the Xbox show. Anybody who tuned into those, thank you. It was very fun. I'm kind of thinking about doing a live stream. Well, I say tomorrow. I'm talking about this like it even applies to you because tomorrow is actually this is when this is going out is tomorrow. So if I was gonna live stream tomorrow, then it wouldn't even matter because this would already have gone out. So it's not relevant that I would bring this up, but I'm just kind of talking to myself about, I might end up live streaming. I don't know. If not, I wanted to at least get something live streamed by this weekend. I would think. I definitely want to get back on the live stream grind. I want to be live streaming probably some Mario Kart World. So of course on Switch 2, I think I'll talk first about Switch 2, and then after that I'll talk about the Summer Games Fest. The Summer Games Fest. Honestly, I don't know. I think I preferred last year's Summer Games Fest. And to be honest, I couldn't, list you a bunch of significant things from last year's Summer Games Fest. I just felt like I was a little bit more excited for it. Maybe I've mellowed out on a lot of that stuff. Or maybe it was because the Switch 2 was out. I mean, I don't know what the deal was. But for whatever reason, I was, not quite as excited as I was last year. There were some great things. I guess, actually, to be fair, I do want to mention one thing for Summer Games Fest. Persona 4 Revival, let's go. Yeah, Revival, I think is what it's called. Persona 4 Revival, it's real, it's true, it's happening, it's so exciting. I will say, if you go back and watch the Xbox show, my reaction to the Xbox show, you can see, I'm like, Persona, and then it comes up and it's like, freaking Fallout, or not Fallout, Resident Evil, or, it's like something like that, like, oh, well, it wasn't Persona, it turns out. Obviously, you can tell Persona has a distinct art style. I mean, you don't necessarily know for sure, but there's lots of things you know for sure aren't Persona. And I was just, I kept kidding. I was like, oh my gosh, Persona. But Persona did actually happen, and to be honest, I don't think I really had all that insane a reaction to it. Because first of all, I was expecting it. This wasn't any sort of, crazy surprise. I guess it's a little surprising because I wasn't entirely sure that it was true that it was going to happen, but I at least had some sort of indication that it could possibly happen. And so I was very, very happy to hear that it was happening. Of course, we got basically zero information. We know the title. We saw the main character, whose name I don't know because I haven't played the game. We saw him walking down the street, and there was literally... I didn't actually notice this when I was watching because it was so minuscule. It was such a short amount of time we were watching it for. I mean, the trailer must have been 10 seconds or 15 maybe. And some people pointed out later, though, there's actually nobody else on that road. He's walking down a completely empty road. So, just kind of... it tells you the state that this game is in. It is not at all anywhere close to done. And so I'm a little curious as to, when could this thing possibly come out? I know most people have agreed it's going to be late 2026, which I don't like the sound of that, but it does make sense. I don't think it's going to be early next year like Persona 3 Reload was. I think it's going to be late in a year, and if it's going to be late in any year, I think it's going to be next year. I don't think it's going to be 2027, because I think that would push back Persona 6 so long. I mean, we don't know when Persona 6 is coming, but presumably they'll try to get it a couple years from now. I mean, honestly, it's a little overdue. It's been a long time. I really think, last year or the year before would have been the kind of year you would have expected that, but they've been so busy. I don't understand the Persona studio at Atlas and Sega. I don't understand, what kind of drugs they're on. It's just absurd. They're pumping out games like they're Pokemon games. I mean, who knows? It's just every day there's a new game. Not every day, but they had this Raidu remaster they were working on, which, by the way, that actually looks cool. I'm thinking of playing that. They had the Raidu remaster, they had Metaphor, They had Persona 5 Strikers was pretty recent. They had, now they've got the Persona 3 Reload was pretty recent. They have Persona 4 Revival they're working on. Supposedly they're working on Persona 6. They had SMT 5 a few years ago. They had, even Persona 5 Royal wasn't that long. It was like 5 years ago. I mean, like, it's just crazy. They're like, just always doing stuff. I don't understand how this happens. Like, they must be on some drugs or something, or they're all just working on 14 projects at once, or they're pulling 36-hour days. I mean, like, I don't know what the deal is, but whatever it is, the amount of work they get done is incredible. Like, it's honestly, it's incredible. So I find that very strange, but it does make sense to me why this game would not be coming out soon. And if it did come out soon, I would really start to question the work ethic of those at the Persona studio. I would be like, goodness gracious, what are they doing over there? It could just be reusing assets and engines and stuff. I don't know. It must be some clever work they're doing, but it's definitely impressive. That's for sure. So Persona, that was the big thing for me. I should actually say I have this funny story I can tell before we actually fully get into talking about the Switch 2. So this was yesterday now, so Wednesday, because I'm recording this on Thursday night. Wednesday, I was reading through my articles. I have on my phone, there's like the hub. I have a Motorola, and there's the Moto hub on the left. And I imagine this is probably how it works for like all phones. Or at least all smartphones and that. There is a little hub on the side where you could see like recent articles and like the weather and that kind of stuff. There's some mostly useless information, but there's every now and then there's some good stuff. And because I look up so much video game stuff and I read so many articles for video games, I get my whole Moto hub basically is full of video games, essentially. I mean, you get some other things too, but it's basically video games. And it also depends on how much news of video games is going around. It depends on how much I've been watching it. Obviously there's a lot of factors, but usually it's video games. And whenever I get a chance, like if I'm on my phone, like, I don't know, after class and before the bells ring, or, just any opportunity I get that I'm on my phone, which, to be fair, I'm not really on my phone that much. But if I ever am, I'm usually reading an article. Instead of, like, playing some game or scrolling through videos or something, I'm usually reading an article. And so yesterday, I was reading through my articles, I was scrolling through the headlines, and I see a headline, The Life and Death of Hideo Kojima. I'm like, death? Oh my gosh, this guy died? No shot, Kojima died. That's crazy, right? And so I'm like, I click off, I'm like going to Google, I'm like, Kojima, seeing if he died, looking up news, I'm like, death of Kojima, Kojima dead, Kojima, all this stuff, Kojima's sick, like all this stuff. I mean, like, I'm trying to figure out what happened to Kojima, because he was just at Summer Games Fest. He's at Summer Games Fest every year. He's like, him and Keeley are like best friends. He was just there, he seemed fine then. The dude's like 60, he's not like suddenly like plop over dead kind of old. He didn't die at all. This article just lied. I don't even know, I don't know, it might have been, I don't know what publication it was. I don't want to spread any ill hatred or anything, because I don't even know for sure. But I don't know, whatever it was, I saw an article, The Life and Death of Hideo Kojima, and I guess it was just him talking about, I guess he's someone who has like his next few projects all already announced and stuff. So he's like booked till he's dead, basically. And that's what he was talking about. He's like, I don't know how many more projects I can do before I'm dead. Like, if he'll finish everything. Which is definitely an interesting thought to have, and of course it's not something I've experienced. Obviously I'm very young, but it is very interesting, like, that he's having such thoughts. I mean, it makes sense obviously when you've gotten older like that, but I just really, the reason I decided to tell this story is because I just found it so funny how they were like, the life and death of Hideo Kojima. Like, that's the kind of thing you expect in a biography of someone who's died, or in some sort of memoir or something. But no, he's very much alive, very much well, as far as I know. I was very concerned because, I've never played a Kojima game, but I know he does a lot for the industry. I think the guy is pretty cool from what I've seen of him, and I'm definitely interested in playing some of his games at some point. So I just found it crazy and quite sad that I learned he had died, but he hadn't actually died. Whatever publication this was, just got a clickbait title, and it worked like a charm. So I guess there's that. We're gonna take a quick music break here. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna talk about some Switch 2 video games, some video games on Switch 2, and actually one other thing as well. When we come back. Alright, welcome back everybody. Let's talk about the Switch 2. It is the Switch 2. It's the Switch 2. It's yeah. Uh, Personally, I got as my gift, I got the bundle without Mario Kart plus Mario Kart physically because I am a physical only. I mean, to be fair, I buy a couple things digitally here and there, but I'm generally a physical first, physical only kind of guy. So I got the box without Mario Kart World on it, but my dad also got a Switch 2. So we've got two Switch 2s in the house. We're just rich over here. No, we're very much not rich. But we've got two Switch 2s, so that's pretty cool. And my dad got the bundle with Mario Kart. Mostly he wanted Mario Kart. That's like his primary thing he wanted on Switch 2. Which is funny because we actually had a lot of disagreements because I was not specifically super excited about Mario Kart. Obviously, I wanted to play it, but I really didn't think it was going to be anything too crazy. I figured it was going to be pretty important and pretty different than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I wasn't really honestly that interested myself. I figured I'd play it and I'd probably think it was alright, but I don't think didn't ever think I was going to be super enamored by the open world or any of that stuff. And you know, we'll touch on that for sure. I definitely will not forget about that. But I guess I want to talk a little bit about the actual hardware itself. So I unboxed it. There may actually be a video. I think my mom took a video. I don't know if I should show the video. I don't know. We'll see. But there, I unboxed it. And I had actually, because I had stayed up the night it came out. So it came out on Thursday. So a week from yesterday that you guys are seeing this. It came out on that Thursday, the day after my last podcast. And I had stayed up that night till after midnight. I stayed up till like 2 in the morning because I was just skimming through all sorts of people. I watched Beat 'em Ups. He's one of my favorite online video Nintendo guys. And so I was watching through his midnight pickup of the Switch 2, the midnight launch at his GameStop. I skimmed through a couple other people's initial unboxings and stuff. I was just enamored. I was like, absolutely, this is amazing. I haven't experienced this since I was very young, and I don't really remember the Switch 1 launch very well, even though I was around and cognizant. I just didn't really know a whole lot back then. I didn't really care as much back then. I didn't really understand what was happening. I didn't get one. There's just a lot of reasons not to be excited back then, as young as I was. But nowadays, I'm obviously much older, and I definitely, I obviously care a lot more. I'm very much caring. I'm probably in the top percent, I would say, of people who care about Nintendo. So I was very excited, and I stayed up, and I was watching through all these people. And I went through that whole day, like, just going through. I spent all of my Thursday, like, between every class, every time I had an opportunity, took out my phone, I was watching through another video. I was going on the Nintendo Today app. I was skipping through. I was like, okay, what did this guy say about the Switch 2? I'd go on Blue Sky. I haven't been on Blue Sky in months. I went on Blue Sky. I was like, oh my gosh, what are these people saying about the Switch 2? And I've got to say, almost all of the attention was negative. I mean, everybody's been negative on this thing. Everybody's been hating on Nintendo for way too long, especially over the last few months. It's just been nonstop. And I'll probably talk more about that next week. I think that could be a good topic. I could, like, specifically talk about the complaints with the Switch 2 and say how I feel about each individual thing. Maybe I'll get into some of that today, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because I'm sure this will probably be a longer episode here, and I really don't have a ton of time, so I can't be going for 3-4 hours. I really need to keep this reasonable length. It'll probably be longer than the last few, but I need to keep it somewhat reasonable. But everyone's been very negative on Nintendo, but I still wanted to hear these opinions. I wanted to see like specifics. What are people saying? What do people think of it? All this stuff, and I was just absolutely enamored. So then I get home from school. And I get surprised with the Switch 2. And my dad also got the Switch 2. So that day I had quite a bit of homework to do. I had also gotten home later because I had to stay after for something. So, I mean, there was a lot of time already missing from the day. But, of course, I unboxed the Switch 2. I grabbed my Switch 1 so I could do all the data transfer stuff. My initial reaction when I took stuff out of the box, first of all, I had seen from all the unboxings how crazily small the Switch 2 box is. It's crazy. It's actually impressive. On one hand, I'm like, man, they really managed to fit this thing in a small box. Because the Switch 2 is significantly larger than the Switch 1. It's actually quite a jump in size. Like, I didn't think it was going to feel as significant as it does. Like, it still feels weird. I haven't played the Switch 2 very much in handheld mode. I'm not really too interested to, but I actually just grabbed it and I'm holding it here. And it's like, it's very large. Like, I don't know, like, maybe it's just because I've never played a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally or a Lenovo Legion Go or any of that stuff, but it really does feel, like, huge. I mean, this thing is massive. Like, it's really, it's a big difference. Honestly, it's like the Wii U gamepad. I think it's actually wider. Is it wider? I could actually grab it real quick. I wanna do a comparison for myself because I definitely have not um, really seen much of this. I think I'm gonna grab my Switch One and my Wii U gamepad and kind of hold all three together and see what the comparison's like. Of course, I've already unplugged my Switch 1 and it's on the shelf, and I'm like neglecting it. I'm like, who cares? Switch 1, old news, it's just one of those things where, like, I like to have a lot of old consoles hooked up, but I don't have a Wii hooked up. I have a Wii that's, well, actually, I guess it is hooked up. Never mind. Disregard. I don't really use the Wii, though. I just play all the Wii stuff on Wii U, and I really don't play much GameCube stuff on disc because I just own so little of it. But it's just one of those things where, like, there's nothing the Switch 1 can do, or very few things the Switch 1 can do that the Switch 2 can't do. So at least for now, I'm just going to keep the Switch 1 unplugged. Years from now, when the Switch 2's old news, I likely will have the Switch 1 out as well. Just, for the sake of remembering stuff and replaying on the original thing and that kind of stuff, But I'm definitely not opposed to using the Switch 2. The Switch 2 is fantastic. So I'm doing my little size comparison here. If you put a Switch 1 and a Switch 2, I would say it is like the Switch 1 is quite a bit taller, like quite noticeably, but also if you hold the left Joy-Cons to each other, I would say the Switch 2 is about a whole Joy-Con wider. So the right Joy-Con of the Switch 1 comes right about to where the right Joy-Con of the Switch 2 starts. So yeah, the Switch 2 is a whole Switch 2 Joy-Con wider, not a Switch 1 Joy-Con wider. A Switch 2 Joy-Con wider. So that's actually quite significant. I've never really even compared the Switch 1 and the gamepad up next to each other. So the Switch 1 is a little bit narrower than the gamepad. It's actually quite a bit shorter as well. And then if I compare the gamepad and the Switch 2, this is going to be really an interesting one. So the Switch 2 is now wider than the gamepad. So the gamepad was wider than the Switch 1, but it's narrower than the Switch 2. And they're actually pretty close in height as well. I think the gamepad's a little bit taller, but it's not too significant. And of course, the gamepad, the screen itself on the gamepad is significantly smaller than both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2 because it takes up so little of the actual face area of the thing. I mean, the Wii U has a lot of empty space, with the non-screen. Like, there's a lot of plastic there where the buttons are. So, whereas in the Switch, even on the Switch 1, I mean, well, honestly, the Switch 1 and Switch 2 are about the same, I would say, on, like, percentage used for the screen. Like, both of them are missing quite a bit of screen, but it's not nearly as bad as the Wii U gamepad. So anyway, back to what I was saying, because I kind of got away from my point here. My initial reactions, obviously, the screen, it was significantly larger. The thing, I felt that it felt really heavy. I immediately tried out the kickstand, because I had never had a Switch OLED. I haven't had a Switch OLED. I've had the year one Switch the whole time. It wasn't like a launch day Switch, but it's a year one Switch. I got it for Christmas. So I haven't had the better battery life of the 2019 model. I haven't had the battery life of the OLED model. I haven't had the better screen of the OLED model. I mean, I've been missing out on a lot of the improvements. Not that anything's been too crazy substantial. If there was like a Switch Pro or something, I think I probably would have wanted it. But there was never anything like that. So, I've been stuck with the year one Switch. And to be fair, I mean, it served me well. I wasn't somebody who had been complaining about the Switch 1 towards the end there. A lot of people were. People were like, oh, it's outdated. I'm like, of course it's outdated. The thing's 8 years old. But really, as long as the Nintendo games are still working fine, and for the most part, the Nintendo games have been fine. I mean, I know, like, Echoes of Wisdom had a little bit of slowdown in a couple areas. Tears of the Kingdom had a little bit of slowdown in a couple areas. But, like, basically every other first-party Nintendo game was flawless. I really didn't notice much of a difference. Obviously, of course, there's lower frame rates. They're 30 frames. Usually they're 720 or something, right? But they just ran smoothly, and that's what was important. So I didn't really mind too much. But I've got to say, after playing some stuff on Switch 2, Wow, there's a difference. The Switch 2 is quite amazing. It's actually it's incredible. I've got to say, it's incredible. But like I said, I have not played it much in handheld, so I haven't really experienced the 4K screen or the I mean any of that, or maybe it's 1440, whatever it is. Who cares? It's better screen. It's HDR. I haven't really. I actually turned off the HDR because I you can't capture it through an Elgato HD60X if you had HDR on for whatever reason. Even though the HDR is not even active when the thing's in the dock, it's not HDR on the screen. It's only HDR on the screen of the actual console. It's not HDR on the TV, I should say. Other initial reactions, obviously, I was absolutely enamored by the magnets. I over and over again, I was putting the magnets on the side of the console or putting them on the grip, and just hearing the sound. It is so loud. I've just been doing it. I'll be there like waiting for a loading screen or something. Which, to be fair, the loading screens are quite short. But I'll be waiting for something, and I'll just be there, taking the Joy-Con off and putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, which is probably not good for my rails, to be honest. But I'm just absolutely enamored with the magnets. I love it. Like it's so tight. It feels good. It's not gonna fall off. It's just really, I love the magnets. Like I think it's a great idea. I love that they did it. I'm absolutely enamored. Like I said, I've said that like 4 times now. But I am. I'm enamored. I'm enamored. So that's there's 6 for you. Also, like I said, the box was very small. I'm actually I think they should have made the box a little bit bigger. Because the way it's in there, it's sideways, or not sideways, it's like diagonal. The Switch 1 or the Switch 2 is set diagonally across the width of its box. So when you open up the box, you immediately see the Switch 1, like, diagonal. And the problem is that it gets really close to the corners of the box. And I know my box came through the mail. My box is actually in pretty rough shape. Like, it's got quite a few little dents and creases and stuff. And obviously, I'm a little sad about that, but it's not really a big deal. I'm still going to keep it. I mean, it's not really the end of the world. My dad's box is actually in a little bit better shape, and because he had the Mario Kart World bundle, he has the little sticker. I actually just found out yesterday that those are actually going to probably be rare because even now the ones in North America don't have the sticker anymore. It's actually printed on the box. And I think basically everywhere else in the world it was printed on the box from the start. So there's going to be a very small percentage of North American Switch 2s that have that sticker. Every other Switch 2 box is going to have the other version for the bundle. So I'm actually very happy to have that older version. I say older like it didn't just come out a week ago, but you know what I'm saying. Like it is older technically still. Um, but yes, I'm not really thrilled about the way they've packaged the thing because I could definitely see, especially with ones getting delivered to the mail, they get tossed around and stuff. Obviously, I mean this is a common thing. Everybody knows the UPS and the FedEx and the USPS guys are out there like drop kicking your items onto your porch, and I mean just all this stuff. They don't like to handle it very well. Many of them. I'm not saying it's everybody, but there are the few. So I'm sure there have been situations with them coming broken or coming damaged in some way because they really just didn't make the box thick enough, and they put the thing too close to the actual edges of the box. Now, personally, mine was fine, which is good. Obviously, I would have been very sad, but it does kind of raise some questions, like what was the philosophy here? Did they really think that it was going to be well protected? I know I did hear that in Rhode Island there was a GameStop where they stapled a receipt on the top of the box for those who got it at the midnight launch, and the staple actually punctured through the box because the cardboard's so thin. It punctured through the box and cracked the screen or left scratches on the screen in a couple instances, which is terrible. You go out for a midnight launch. You're obviously a huge fan. You've been waiting for this thing for so long, and then you get your screen damaged from the GameStop staple gun. And obviously, I mean, that's kind of GameStop's fault because they're the ones who did the staples, but at the same time, I think that's just as much on Nintendo. I mean, those staples really don't reach that deep. Like, they just should have made the cardboard thicker, and they should have put the console away from the cardboard. Like, I think they've just packed this thing together too much so that they can keep the boxes small. It's just too packed in. I think it's almost asking to be damaged in the mail or in whatever situation it is pre-sale. So, I don't know. I don't think it was very smart of them to do it that way. But I do think the box looks pretty cool. I really do like the box. Like I said, I like the screen. The dock. When we first saw the dock unveiled and it was all rounded at the front and stuff, I thought it was really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, look at the dock. It's so cool. It's whatever. I mean, it's I don't think the dock's really any better or any worse. I guess I don't know. Maybe I do prefer the Switch 2 dock, but I don't mind the Switch 1 dock. I don't think it's really a big deal. I do like that there's actually extra added juice now in the dock, that it actually helps with the performance and stuff, rather than just being like a charging port, basically, which it was before. There's not really much difference. Now it's pretty substantial, so I do actually enjoy that. But as far as the actual look of the dock, don't really mind. I do think the console itself looks a lot sleeker, a lot nicer. Obviously, it's one of those things. When the Switch 1 came out, it looked sleek, it looked nice, it looked quality, premium. But then over time, it started to look aged. Just because, the definition of modern has changed. But now, once again, the Switch 2 looks fresh and modern and awesome and cool and just fantastic. I'm really in love with this thing. So, and I'm sure, in 8 years' time, when we get another one, it'll be like, oh my gosh, this is even better, right? But, for now, this is fantastic. So, I'm definitely happy with that. I also really like the Joy-Cons. I like the look of the Joy-Cons. I kind of like the black. I am glad that the Switch 1, they had the red and blue. Obviously, they had black Joy-Cons as well, or dark gray they were. And I liked that design on Switch 1, but I do think I prefer the red and blue like I had, because it just kind of screams Switch to me, right? You look at the red and the blue on the original Joy-Cons, it's like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, right? If you see another pair of Joy-Cons, if you see a purple and a green or a yellow or something like that, it's like, that's not right, I mean, it looks cool, but I'm like, that's not my Switch. My Switch is blue and red. Although, to be fair, by the end of the generation, I actually had blue on the right and red on the left. I got the inverse. Whereas when they originally came out, the red was on the right, the blue was on the left. But I bought replacement Joy-Cons because I had drift, and I got them inverse. Not by, not, on purpose. They came that way. I don't understand. I bought them at GameStop, and they didn't have the red on the right, blue on the left. They had the opposite. Of course, the Switch 2, it's also got the red and the blue, but it's only under the joystick. And also, if you disconnect it from the console, it's also there. Um, which I think that's actually pretty cool. I think it looks nice. Do what I have wished that the whole thing was red and blue. I don't know. I'm pretty mixed on that. I know a lot of people have been like, oh, well, they should have just done it like Switch 1, where you could, see the red and the blue on the whole Joy-Con. Because that was the whole marketing, right? It's red and blue. I mean, I'm like, I get that, but at the same time, I think this looks a lot nicer, and they've got to make it stand out a little bit, right? Even on Switch 1, there were never black Joy-Cons, there were dark gray, right? So, for having these, especially for something that's a big iterative step, it's a big hardware power step, I should say. It's a big, extreme hardcore kind of thing. I mean, it's not, as much as, PS5 Pro or anything, but it's in that vein, right? And, I think having something like that be so black and so dark, I think it really sends the message they're trying to send. And I'm not sure that's the message they should be sending. I think they should have done something weird and wacky and unlike the Switch 1 and just totally different. But at the same time, I'll take the Switch 2. I'm at least happy we're going to get more games, they're going to look better, they're going to run better, everything's going to be better. So I'm at least happy about that. Although, like I said, part of me does wish, actually most of me does wish, they had done something else. But I can't say I'm disappointed. I still think the thing's cool. So, I guess that's where I stand. I do also like the Joy-Con straps. So for Switch 1, obviously, they had the Joy-Con straps. It's like the Wii Remote straps, right? And you're supposed to slide the Joy-Cons into the straps and use them that way, so you don't break your TV. Now the straps, I'm not even sure that that's the fear anymore, is that you'll break your TV. I don't even know why they still do straps. I don't know, maybe for little kids and stuff. Maybe that's the idea. But I mean, I do kind of like using the straps sometimes. I think they're nice. On Switch 1, though, I never used them. Absolutely never used them because they were so hard to get off. And this was something everybody said. Everybody's always said it. The Switch 1 straps are impossible to get off. Well, the Switch 2 straps are super easy to get off. They fixed that, and the straps, for me, I think the main functionality of the straps now for Switch 2 is that it helps with the mouse controls, because the extra feet on the mouse, they're thickened, so you can actually control the mouse with more precision if you have the straps on. So I've actually been using the straps sometimes. Whereas in Switch 1, I don't think I ever used it. Maybe on the first day when I first got it, I tried them a little bit, first week or so, and then I never used them again. But with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, I have used them. Not every time I've played, but pretty often I've used them. So I do quite like the straps this time around, whereas I very much did not on Switch 1. I don't think anybody did. I don't think anybody was in the boat of appreciating the straps on the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. But I do like them here. And honestly, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything specific with the hardware itself that I don't think is better. I've loaded up the Switch eShop. I actually bought a couple things. So I had Mario Kart World. I guess I can tell a couple launch stories here. I got the thing in the mail when I got home from school. It actually had came before I left from school. It came at like 7 in the morning, and I just didn't know. My parents got it and hid it from me. So I went to school. When I came back, I got it. So like this is like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then Mario Kart came in the mail about 5 o'clock. We had just left to go to the store because I immediately wanted to rush out and go buy. I was thinking of like Yakuza or Bravely Default or something. I wasn't entirely sure yet what I wanted to buy, but I wanted to rush out there and buy something. So we went to the store. We went to Walmart because the GameStop in my area closed last year, I was a very sad day for me. I was very disappointed. A lot of GameStops have closed in the Northeast. And actually, I think really just across the country. So another GameStop closed, and I was very disappointed about that. But oh well, I've gotten over it now, and it just sucks because now every time I want to buy new games, I've got to do it at Walmart, and they don't always have stuff. They don't have anything that's like over a few months old. They take everything off the shelves. I don't think I could even find Breath of the Wild last time I was there. I mean, I guess now I can on Switch 2, but not on Switch 1. So it's just crazy. I mean, it's absurd. So we went out to Walmart the day the Switch 2 came out, and of course I wanted to go check and see how many they had left. They actually had one Switch 2, which I find really weird because I was actually expecting that either the Switch 2 was going to do so well that my Walmart would have none left that time of day, or they were going to have tons because they ordered way more than they needed. So I found it really weird that they had just one left at like 4:30 or whatever. It seemed like a weird amount for them to have. Of course, at this point, we're at the store, and I haven't even, fully set up my Switch 2. It's like doing the update to go to Switch 1. Or from the Switch 1, it's getting the data from the Switch 1. And we left my dad. He was at home. He had set up his, but he couldn't figure out how to get to the eShop to redeem his Mario Kart World because he hasn't even had a Switch. So the most modern Nintendo hardware he's used was the Wii U. So he doesn't really, he's not as familiar with a lot of this big, the online infrastructure on video game consoles. So he was not sure how to do that. We had to come back and show him. But anyways, we were out there. And when we went to Walmart, they literally didn't have any games on the shelves. I went over to look at the shelves and went to the Switch 2 section. Actually, I went to the Switch 1 section. Couldn't find a single Switch 2 game anywhere. I was like, where are they? Turns out they were behind the help desk. And the people in there, because they had had such a busy day in the tech department, the people in there were like people from the photo booth and people from the, like, I don't know, like arts and crafts. I mean, I don't think actually, but they totally did not know what was going on with video games because I imagine all the video game people and all the tech people, computer people, whatever they were, all those people had already been there in the morning, and it was now, these other people that didn't know what they were doing. So we're here asking, like, where are the Switch 2 games? We're looking for Switch 2 games. And she's, like, pointing to a stack of Switch 1 games, and I'm like, no, the case is all red, and, and there's, like, Mario Kart, and they should be all, together. And so she's, like, looking around, running around, back behind the help desk, all over the place. Of course, she was, like, open up these cabinets, and I see just this giant, like, there must have been like 25 Switch 1s, because I guess what happened is they pulled all the Switch 1s off the shelf that hadn't sold, so that they would have space to fit the Switch 2s, and then I guess they figured that when the Switch 2s sold, they would get more, but then they would also stock some Switch 1s again. So I just see all these Switch 1s, and they're just going through, trying to find games. Finally, they were in a box in the back, like they were still taped up and stuff. She's like, I don't know if I can sell you these, and like she's like showing us is like they've got like one Yakuza, they've got a couple of they got like Cyberpunk, and like they've got all the stuff, but she's like, I don't even know if I can sell you these, and we're like, it's just whatever. We'll just go, we'll look at Target. We decided we're gonna go look at Target, so we left Walmart. And of course, they had the digital cards out, but they didn't actually have the physical games. I guess I forgot to mention that. We went to Target. And sure enough, they did actually have the games on the shelves. They weren't properly on the shelves. They were on, like, end caps. And I'm guessing they tried to frame it as, like, hey, look, these are the new things, so we're displaying them here. but I think they were really just too lazy to actually do the inventory and probably put them on the shelf, is my guess. But whatever the case, they were there on the end caps, and they had the digital cards and stuff. They must have had like 20 copies of Mario Kart World. They didn't have any Switch 2s left. They must have had like 20 copies of Mario Kart World, but they had hardly anything else. There were 2 copies of Bravely Default, and there was a bunch of Street Fighter 6. That was it. That's all they had. So I, at Target, on launch day, on Thursday, bought Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. And I'll talk individually about the games later, but I just kind of want to tell some of the stories here. So I bought Bravely Default, and that was the only game I had. I actually still haven't been back out to the store because I've been so busy. But I guess I heard that they have actually put the games finally out in Walmart as of like yesterday. So it took them like a full week to actually get the stuff out properly. And last I knew, they still had a copy of Yakuza, so I'm thinking of going out either tomorrow or Saturday. So when you guys are seeing this, I might possibly already have a game. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be Yakuza or if it's going to be... I think I'm actually leaning more towards Sonic Time Shadow Generations, because it's a shorter thing. I have a lot of long stuff, a lot of RPGs in the pipeline already, so I'm kind of thinking I don't really need Yakuza right now, and I can probably... buy it later on, and it'll make more sense to read it then, or to play it then, So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to hold off on Yakuza, and I'm going to buy Sonic instead, because I also want to play Sonic. I'm not really too interested in Sonic games, generally speaking, but Sonic Generations seems like one that I would like, and it's a big Switch 2 thing, and I don't know, it's also only $50, so I want to try it out. When it came out on Switch 1, I was actually kind of interested in it, but I figured it was probably a bad version. So now that it's on Switch 2, I trust it a little bit more. So I'm probably going to buy that in the next couple days. I should mention, though, that I went through the eShop, and I used the mouse to go through the eShop, which works totally fine. I mean, I don't really think it's a huge difference using a mouse to go through the eShop versus using just, a joystick to go through the eShop. Personally, I didn't really think it was too crazy different, but I have heard some people online talking about how great it is to use a mouse to navigate the menus and stuff, and I'm like, whatever, it's not really a big deal. So not a problem here. But I went to the eShop. I signed up. I guess this is going off on a side tangent. I got an account on Deku Deals. Deku Deals is a website. It's like totally free and stuff, and you can track your wish lists from several different consoles. So when you download it, or when you go on the website, it'll come up and it'll be like, what platforms do you own? And you can select, the Switch, the PlayStation, the Xbox, the Epic Game Store, Steam, whatever the case. For me, it's everything. I have everything. And you can go and you can search things up and add them to your wish list. And so I added a bunch of indie games, because I'm not really usually buying a ton of indie games because they're all digital. And I don't like to buy digital games. So I went through and I was looking at a bunch of indie games, looking at ones with sales, and so that way I can start buying some of these indie games that I've wanted to play for a long time. So I looked out a couple, and I ended up buying Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons and Golf Story, because Brothers was $3, Golf Story was $2. So I'm like 8 years late to the party on Golf Story, and I think I'm actually even later to the party on Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. I have started playing Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I will not talk about Golf Story because I haven't started that yet. But yes, I bought those on the Switch 2 eShop. They registered as virtual game cards, and I'm like, oh, cool, whatever. And also, while I was on the store, I bought Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which, again, I'll talk about in a minute. Although I guess maybe I'm ready to talk about it now. I think I'm actually going to take another music break. It's been about half an hour. Going to take another music break. I'll come back and talk about some video games, specifically Welcome Tour, Mario Kart World, a little bit of Bravely Default. Not much to say on that. Wind Waker. I played a bunch of Wind Waker. And then a little bit of Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. So that's what I'm going to talk about, those 5 things. I will be back in un momento. Alright everyone, welcome back. Here we are to talk about some Switch 2 video games. As it turns out, believe it or not, Believe it or not, Nintendo, bold approach here. They're like, you know what? We'll put on a new console. Let's put some video games too. Although just one. Pretty much just one. They're like, you know what? In Mario Kart World will do the trick. And I said, no, Mario Kart World will not do any such trick. No, Mario Kart World, bad launch game, Switch too bad, overpriced. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't ever that guy. But I was like, no, I'm not really super excited about Mario Kart World, and, it's pretty good. I gotta say, it's pretty good. I have some problems. First of all, let's talk about the free roam, because that's what everyone wants to talk about. That's like the big thing. That's the big selling point. That's the thing, right? Mario Kart World has the free roam. It's open world. Actually, no, it's a vast, continuous world, interconnected. It's definitely not open under no circumstances, according to the developers. But it's an open world. It's fine. Okay. I don't know. The free roam mode. There's like technically a lot to do. I didn't find any of it terribly compelling. I started the open world. I think one of the big things on the open world is you can unlock the character costumes, right? You have all these costumes for all these characters. There's a bunch of characters in Mario Kart World. Some of which are from old games, many of which are totally new. They've added in a bunch of enemies, a bunch of NPCs, a cow for some reason, just all sorts of random stuff. And most of those characters, actually I think literally every single one, has at least one costume. Many of them have many costumes. I think Mario and Luigi and the bigger characters have 10 of them or something. They have quite a few costumes in this game. And they're all listed separately on the character select screen, which is a little strange. I think they should have just put them all together, but they didn't. So whatever, not a big deal. And these costumes, there's a lot of ways to get them. You can get them while doing the Grand Prix, you can get them while doing the Knockout Tours, you can get them while doing the free roam, or you can even get them while waiting in line for online matches. So I tried a few online matches for a couple of videos I recorded. They were those challenge videos like I did for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I did a lot of the same challenges this time with Mario Kart World. So I did those things, and so I did a couple online matches with those. And, the online, it's good. I mean, it's fine. No, I didn't have any problems with it. I guess a little bit of a strange thing on launch day of Mario Kart World, on day one. Now it was late in the evening, but on day one, there were people in there. I think the starting VR was like 3,000, and there were people in there with like 6,000. So don't quote me on the numbers, but they had like thousands more VR than the starting amount. So I don't understand what happened with those guys, what they had been doing. Maybe they hacked it. I don't know. Whatever the case, it was crazy. There were some people in there that had just so much VR. Personally, I was doing pretty well. Well, I mean, pretty well is sort of an exaggeration. It's just like the online mode especially seems very easy in Mario Kart World. Like, you can get like 22nd place and still gain VR. Now, of course, just like any other Mario Kart game since the VR, the amount you lose or gain depends on the VR of the room. So it does make sense, that if everybody in the room had double the VR, maybe you still gain in 22nd place. But even in a room that was pretty mixed, I felt like I was still gaining VR unless I literally got bottom place. Like, I get 22nd, 23rd place, and I was still gaining VR, even in a room with a lot of people at my same VR. Like, it just didn't make sense. It felt like you gained a lot more than you lost. Which, I could see it being quite frustrating if you're losing more than you're gaining. But, there should be some sort of balance, and I feel like it's usually been fine. But I did feel like the balance was a little off this time around because it felt like it was very easy to gain VR, and I think that's part of why the numbers felt so inflated. The VR numbers, they felt very inflated. And I don't know if that's true. Maybe I'm just imagining things. I don't think there's actually any real data to support it. It just really felt like that at a first glance to me, and it felt like it could potentially disrupt, the loop of the online mode for a lot of people. Now, I'm sure a lot of other people will be totally fine. They won't have any problems, and that's cool. And, personally, I don't really care. I'm not someone who's going to play a ton of this online. I might do a few more of those videos, and so maybe I'll play some here and there. But even if I keep doing those videos for the next 8 years, I'm still not going to be playing it online that much, Like, it's not... I'm going to be playing a lot less than a lot of people. So, it's just not one of those things that is really too bothersome to me. I felt like it was a weird thing that I definitely noticed while playing the online mode for the short amount of time I did. Of course, I also tried the free roam only for a short amount of time. I did like 2 P-switches, maybe 3. And I got 1 peach coin, and while waiting for an online game, I did 1 question mark panel in 1 area. So there's these question mark panels around. Um, there's not really anything to them. They're just hidden. You just have to drive over them, and you get a sticker, which doesn't really sound very compelling. But the good news about the question mark blocks, stickers, panels, whatever they're called, is that they're actually like tracked well on the map. Because if you go on the map, it'll show 5 grayed out question mark blocks per area, or like per surrounding area of a track. And that's how you know how many there are. You can be like, oh, well, I've gotten 3 out of 5 in this area. Whereas with P-switches, that's not the case. There's just randomly, I think it's like 243, I think is what the online people have determined. There's just randomly 243 placed, and you have no idea when you've gotten all of them, as far as I know. Maybe there's something when you get them all, but you don't have a whole lot of update, as you're going along. You don't really know exactly where you're at. Like, oh, I've got, 83 out of 243, or oh, now I've got, 144 out of, it's just like, there's no sort of like tally, you can't tell. So it's just, you kind of just aimlessly, the P-switches seem like the kind of thing that you wouldn't try to get all of. They seem like the kind of thing that are just kind of there, and if you happen to be in the free roam for other reasons, you just stop on the way and get those P-switches. Which, to be fair, is what the majority of people are trying to do, but when I hear about collectibles in a game, oftentimes I want to try to go for them all. Now, I don't always, sometimes they're not very compelling, and this is one of those scenarios, for me at least, where they're just not all that compelling. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's just me, whatever. Whatever the case, I just wasn't quite feeling it. I don't know. I mean, wasn't feeling the P-switches. The question mark panels I might go for. Wasn't quite feeling the P-switches, or at least not getting all of them. I might go for a few more. And, maybe Mario Kart World is something that I return to for the next many years, and grab a few every time I'm on. And maybe one day I'll get to the 243, but I just really wasn't too terribly interested in trying to get all of those. And then the other main collectible are the Peach tokens, which those ones are, I think, really poorly implemented. Because the problem is, like, some of them are really well hidden. Like, they're very hard to find. Others of them are right out in the open, but there's, like, some sort of crazy challenge. Like, you've got to do some wall riding stuff, you've got to do some like, crazy stuff to get to them, or you've got to have a feather or something, there's some challenge associated. And others of them are just out in the open, not hard to find, and not hard to get. So I feel like they should have went with one of those 3 routes. Either they're just out and there's nothing to them, in which case I probably want to go for them. 1. 2, you can find them, but they're hard to get to. Or 3, they're difficult to find but easy to get to. They should have went with one option, or possibly they could have had easy to find but difficult to get to, and difficult to find but easy to get to. They could have had both of those, as long as they didn't also have easy to find and easy to get to. I think having that third thing in there just doesn't make sense. If they were always easy to find, but some of them were challenging, if they were always challenging, but some of them were easy to find, I mean, like, I could get away with 2 of those things. Having 3 different categories of those peach coins, it just feels a little weird. Like, there's almost no consistency to how you would expect those things to be placed. And I think there should be at least some level. I'm not saying it has to be perfect, it doesn't have to be an exact science, but it definitely doesn't really make me want to necessarily hunt for them, because so many of them are easy to find, so many of them are, so well hidden, and so many of them are just out. So I got like one of those. I'll probably just grab whatever ones I see along the way if I decide to go for those panels. And then the other thing, like the free roam, it's nice. I mean, it's kind of fun just driving around the roads and stuff, and that's cool. But if without much objective and without like a story mode and without that stuff, it doesn't feel like there's really a ton of reason for me to. And I know my dad's been very hooked on the free roam stuff, and I know I've heard some people online that were very hooked on the free roam stuff, and that's cool, and I'm happy for those people. And I'm not, like, upset that the free roam mode is here, because, I mean, it doesn't really take away from the game. The only thing I could think is that maybe we won't get DLC for Mario Kart World like we did for Mario Kart 8, because it would be very difficult for them to make new tracks and incorporate them into the open world, unless they made a totally new world on top, or those tracks were just completely omitted, which would feel weird. Like, I don't feel like there's a good, clean way of doing it. So maybe that's the only thing it's taken away. But generally speaking, I think the free roam is good for Mario Kart. I don't think it's something that's really ruined it in any way. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I don't think it's added quite as much as I would have hoped. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. The free roam mode, it's fine. But really, when I'm talking about this game, I'm going to be talking more about non-free roam stuff. And I should mention, with the costumes, right, a lot of people are going to be doing free roam to find costumes. Personally, I've just been using Luigi so far, and I have all the costumes of his but one. So if I manage to get that last one in a Grand Prix or in a knockout tour, I'll probably switch characters and start working on costumes for somebody else. And then what I'm probably going to end up doing is wandering in the free roam mode in between playing other games and looking for all of the question mark panels. And while I'm looking for the question mark panels, I'll also hit any P-switchers I find and get any peach coins I find and try to unlock the costumes while I'm doing it. That's my strategy. So, I'm going to be really looking for those question mark blocks. If I miss other things, that's fine. Maybe I'd like to get the costumes and the question mark blocks. If I don't get all the P-switches or the peach coins, that's fine by me. I'm not really too concerned about that. So, I think that's going to be my strategy moving forward. But in the Grand Prix, I definitely need to get all the Grand Prix on every CC and all the knockout tours on every CC. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about the Grand Prix. I originally thought the concept of driving between tracks in the Grand Prix to be a pretty neat idea. But then I was very worried. I was like, well, actually, that could be kind of annoying, because originally I thought it was going to be something you could turn on and off. And I was like, oh, that would be kind of fun to try. But then when I found out you couldn't turn it on and off, I was like, oh, that's going to suck. It's going to, just, add extra time. That's just unnecessary. It's not going to feel, like it's at all really there for it's not going to feel useful. It's just going to feel, stupid. And I've got to say, I actually really don't mind the driving in between tracks thing. I think it's actually kind of neat. I don't think it really adds a ton of value to the tracks. I really don't feel like the world is necessarily more immersed. Or I don't feel more immersed in the world. Just because of those in-between tracks. But I definitely don't hate them. I think they're fine. I mean, I'm not, like I said, I don't really have much of an opinion here, so at the end of the day, they're fine. I think the tracks in between tracks are well-designed, so I'm totally fine racing with them. But again, if there was an option to turn them off, I probably would turn them off. I don't know, maybe I wouldn't. I probably would. I don't know. I might, just because I don't feel like they inherently add anything. But they definitely don't take anything away, so I don't mind them being there. It's whatever. I definitely don't, I get to an in-between track, and I'm not like, oh, man, one of these? It's whatever. It's not a big deal. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. So, the actual Grand Prix, I have completed every Grand Prix, and when you complete 7 out of the 8, you unlock the Special Cup, which has Rainbow Road. And I've got to say, some of my favorite tracks, I like Super Mario Bros. Circuit. I will say, I'm not much of a Mario Kart fan. I don't know the names of tracks. I don't remember the names of tracks. But I really enjoyed the dinosaur one. That was in all the trailers. I really enjoyed the Mario Bros. Circuit. I enjoyed... Rainbow Road, I think, is actually one of the best. I don't know if it's the best, but it's one of the best, I think, iterations of Rainbow Road they've done. And honestly, other than that, specifics don't come to mind. I definitely enjoyed my time. I don't think there was ever a track that I was like, oh, this is stupid. I didn't, hate any tracks. And there were some standout ones that I guess apparently didn't stand out enough for me to remember them a week later. So, I'm just not that good at remembering these things. But, my point is I thought the tracks were pretty nice. I was a little concerned that we were getting so few, but honestly, the tracks in the Grand Prix, and especially the knockout tours, are very long. They feel very, they take a long time. At least the knockout tours, maybe less so with the Grand Prix. So, I actually think that's good, because, that way, it feels like there's more content than there should have probably been. Which, normally I'd be like, oh, they're artificially dragging it out. But I don't think, in this situation, I think it's actually a force for good rather than one for evil. If it's even a force, if you even want to talk about it in that way. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, I thought the tracks were good. The Grand Prix system is mostly good. I have one complaint. I know I've actually had quite a few complaints. I have one complaint specifically on the Grand Prix, and that's that
when you beat a Grand Prix, you could see it on your menu there. There's the 8 Grand Prix in a row. And there's little trophies next to the ones you've completed. But it's only that you've completed them. Like, they don't go like, gold, platinum, diamond, or like bronze, silver, gold, or anything like that. Like, they're always gold. Rather, you've beat, 2 tracks on 50, 2 tracks on 50 and 100, and 2 tracks on 50, 100, and 150. They're all going to look the same. So you actually have to click on the course, and then you can see from there on what CCs you've beat them. So it feels like almost like it's not as intended for you to get all the CCs done, because it just doesn't feel like it's as well designed to like show you, hey, here's your progress. It's like they didn't expect you to try to do all the tracks and all the CCs, because they expected people to just instead focus on, the free roam, which maybe they did, I don't know. But personally, I'm all about these Grand Prix and stuff, so I've been trying to beat them all the CCs. And I've done all the tracks on 50, and I've done the first two or three on 100. And I've got to say, on 50cc, it felt very easy. My biggest thing was that, and obviously it's on 50cc, it makes sense. My biggest thing, I think, was that I felt that there was almost no punishment for being hit by items. Like you get a blue shell, or you get well, first of all, like a shock, right? A shock does almost nothing. In games past, you get shocked, and especially if you're up at the front, you're small for like, I don't know, 30 seconds? A minute, maybe? I don't know, maybe not quite a minute, but it's like 30 seconds. Like, it's a solid amount of time. And it really does affect you. People can squish you. I mean, there's a lot of problems that can arise from getting shocked. In Mario Kart World, you're small for like 2 or 3 seconds. Like, it's not substantial at all. And I think they only put the shrinking thing in there to call back to older Mario Kart games. I don't think the shrinking mechanic actually adds or changes anything. So the lightning item doesn't really seem to be nearly as helpful. I guess it's still kind of helpful because it hits everybody, but again, the hits, it doesn't really spin you out, or per se. You just kind of lose a little bit of speed when you're hit. Like, I've like full-on ran into other cars on the road, like there's obstacles for cars, or I've been hit by shells, and I'll just keep on going. And I'll just be like slightly slower than I was before. Like, I don't even spin out. Like, there's very little punishment, which at first I was like, well, that's kind of stupid. But as I played more, I realized, well, you know what? It's because there's 24 racers. So they've had to make the punishment less, because if you're getting constantly bombarded by items like you never were before, it would feel really bad if there was such a punishment for each one. If you were, like, spun out for it. Like, imagine you had, like, Mario Kart 64 levels of spin out, or Super Mario Kart, right? With 24 racers. You've just tripled your racers from those games, and now you're still getting hit by just as many items, and the punishment's just as bad, but now there's triple the items hitting you, right? Actually, probably more, because so many more can be, multiples of the items. So it would be terrible. It would feel awful. You'd be in first place, and then all of a sudden you get hit by one shell, and you'd be back in 24th. Like, it would feel really bad. So I actually kind of like that. In 100cc, it feels a lot more chaotic, and it feels like the items have more of a punishment. I don't think they do. I think you're spun out for equal amounts of time. It's just that you're getting hit by more items, and that the pack is closer. So when you get hit by an item, even though it doesn't do as much, you're falling back more places than before. So I had a couple scenarios in 100cc where I'd be like first place right at the end of a course, and then boom, all of a sudden I'm hit by like 3 things, and I'm in like 24th place. Not usually, but like, like 20th or so. Like, I'm pretty low down after just an item or two. And it feels really bad. And so I've like lost Grand Prix in the last 5 seconds a few different times. Like, 100cc feels kind of hard, even if I'm racing well, because it's very difficult to get ahead of the pack. And actually, that's even true in 50cc. You can be at the front pretty easily, but to actually get a significant lead on the next guy feels very difficult because there's 24 of them. So, like, I'll be, like, in first, and I won't have anybody pass me for, like, the entire race. But I'll look back right at the end, and they'll still be, like, right up there, not far away. Like, they're noticeably within shelling distance. And that's because if I do get shelled by them, they don't catch up, because I just keep going at the same speed. Like, it's almost minuscule. So as long as you get a couple good drifts, and you're much better than the AI, or, like, the CPUs at drifting, and they don't do it quite as often. So as long as you get a few drifts in, you're just going to build the lead, especially in 50cc. In 100cc, you're still usually in the front, but people are right there with you. You're teeter-tottering between the front and, like, 8th place because there's so many people up in that front pack, and it means you're getting hit by a lot more items. I haven't tried 150cc yet, but I imagine it's actually going to be very difficult because 150cc with 24 racers, I would imagine would be chaos. Honestly, like I imagine that'll be chaos. So I'm actually a little excited, and maybe it'll stump me. Maybe I'll have to like do Grand Prix over and over again, which I wouldn't be totally opposed to doing because it would definitely mean I'd get more out of the game. If I have to do one 4 or 5 times, I might get a little frustrated, but I don't know. I wouldn't mind if something slowed me down because I'm kind of flying through it. So yeah, if something does slow me down, I think that's all right. Knockout Tour. Let's talk about Knockout Tour. I actually, in some ways, I almost think I might prefer Knockout Tour to actual Grand Prix. And I know that seems crazy. Knockout Tour, that's the one where like you'll start the race, and there's sometimes 4 laps, sometimes 5, sometimes 6. So like you might start the race, and it's like get 20th or better in the next lap, and it's an entire Grand Prix worth of courses. Usually they take different combinations of courses though. It's a whole Grand Prix worth of courses, all like merged together, with each course having 1 lap. And it feels like it's the full length of the course per lap because they definitely are long, long races. And I should say that's another thing. Most of the tracks in this game are not circular. Many of them are just straight lines, and the laps are just positioned across like checkpoints. So many of them are not really even tracks per se. I mean, maybe they still are. I don't know. They're like straight roads, a lot of them, or not necessarily straight. There's curves and stuff, but oftentimes they do not loop back around. There are a few, but oftentimes they don't. So. And I mean, that's not really a positive or a negative. It's whatever. It's not really much of a difference. It doesn't feel much different, but it looks different. It's definitely a different vibe. So, whatever. But yeah, it feels like they might take the whole track in certain situations and put it as a piece of the Knockout Tour. So the Knockout Tour Cups are very long. Even though it's only one race, they're very long. So you usually, I mean, it'll be like, get 20th place or better, and then you'll go and it'll be 16th place or better, or like 12th or better, 8th or better, 4th or better, and then you have to win. Oftentimes is what it is. But sometimes there's less laps. Sometimes they go straight to 4th, and then, that's the end. Sometimes they start where you have to get at 16th. I mean, it just depends on what tracks they've fused together and how long they are, and so sometimes there's less laps. I mean, it's almost hard to call them laps because again, they're usually straight tracks. There's usually not any sort of loop to them. So anyways, I actually really do like Knockout Tour quite a bit, and it's a lot more chaotic. It feels a little bit harder. I mean, I haven't really struggled too much yet, but I've only done 3 knockouts on 50cc every time, so I haven't even tried 150 or 100cc or 150cc with Knockout Tour. I was actually, when I first booted up the game and I saw the CCs, I was like, oh my gosh, they're missing 200. That's actually, like, crazy. Like, it's gonna feel so slow. No, it still feels quick, even on 150. So I don't think the removing 200 was a big deal. In fact, actually, I think it makes sense. Because I think having a game with 24 racers on a CC as fast as Mario Kart 8's 200, I think that would be too much. Like, I think it would be too chaotic. And I mean, chaotic's fun to a point, but I think it would really, at that point, be unfun. So I'm kind of almost glad they removed 200cc. It's less stuff I have to do, and it probably would be miserable anyway. So yeah, I'm definitely going to finish up the Grand Prix. I imagine next time we speak, I'll probably be done with 100 on the Grand Prix. Maybe we'll have tried 150, and in the Knockout Tours, I'll probably at least be through the 50s. That's my guess, and maybe I'll be further than that. We'll see. But I definitely want to try a little bit more free roam mode because I haven't got to try it much, and I'll try it with trying to get some costumes and the switches, or not the switches, the the question mark panels. And if I happen to get some P switches and some peach coins along the way, fantastic. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. We'll see what happens. But that's Mario Kart World. I just spent 25 minutes talking about Mario Kart World. But that is not the only thing I've been playing on Switch 2, although it is the primary thing. I guess I'll talk, like, in order what I play next. The next thing I booted up after trying some Mario Kart World, this was actually day 2 now, the first time I booted this up, was Wind Waker on the GameCube service. So, of course, I spent a lot of the last week helping my dad set up his Switch Online stuff. That was a lot of the stuff he wanted to play. He's already playing like Mario's Picross on Game Boy, stuff I would never even think about playing, but obviously he's got different tastes. He actually grabbed Civ 7 as well. That was part of why he wanted to play the Switch 2, because he has a laptop, so he wasn't going to be able to run Civ 7. He can barely run 6. And so when he found out, especially about these mouse controls, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can play Civ 7 on the Switch 2. It'll be powerful," and you know. So I think that was a big motivating factor, but also Mario Kart was a big motivating factor, and the retro stuff, the Switch Online stuff, was a big motivating factor. So, you know, anyways, I've been setting up a lot of that stuff, but I've also tried out the Switch Online myself. I played a little bit of Wind Waker, and I've got to say, you know, the GameCube emulation, I think it's quite good. I was a little concerned on Switch 1 about the GameCube emulation, if that was ever going to happen. I was concerned if it would be a little glitchy or a little laggy here and there. It's totally fine. And who knows, maybe on Switch 1 it would have been. Actually, I would imagine it quite possibly could have been. But on Switch 2, it's perfectly fine and perfectly not problematic at all. I didn't have any slowdown or anything. I actually did have one thing I found weird, and that was the controls, actually, because Wind Waker, for those who haven't played it, the camera, or at least on the GameCube version, maybe not on the Wii U version, the camera is inverted on the X-axis. So when you move the joystick left, you look right, and the right joystick, I should say. When you turn it left, you look right, and when you turn it right, you look left, which definitely doesn't feel right. Because, I mean, not that I haven't played games like that, but I feel like generally I don't play games like that. So it was a little strange. I had to go in, but the good news is, I guess what I'm getting at here, is that with the Switch 2, Switch Online apps, they've actually added in the button mapping. You can change the button mapping, and it saves on a game-to-game basis. So I went through and I just inverted the right control stick, and boom, all of a sudden, it's like playing a normal video game. So I do like that they've done that, because there are certain games, especially, that I don't like how they control on Switch Online, especially if I've played enough of them on original hardware. That isn't true for Wind Waker. Wind Waker is just a separate thing altogether, where I just don't like the inverted X-axis camera. I don't mind an inverted Y-axis on a camera, but I don't like the inverted X-axis usually. And it felt unnatural, so I changed it, and now it feels totally fine. And I've got to say, Wind Waker, like, I stopped playing Ocarina of Time because I was stuck on the Water Temple, and I hadn't played it in a long time, but also to play Wind Waker. And I've got to say, I prefer Wind Waker to Ocarina of Time. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. that might be a little, you know, all the Ocarina of Time fans just unsubscribed. They've just ran away, and they're like never coming back. I'm not totally set on that opinion. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm just it's just new. You know, I haven't played it before, but for so far, I actually am preferring Wind Waker to Ocarina of Time. I'm not yet sure about Skyward Sword. I really did like Skyward Sword. I actually played all the way through that one. So I'll have to see when I play all the way through Wind Waker. But after Wind Waker, I probably will go back to Ocarina of Time, or at the very least, maybe I'll go on to, I don't know, maybe I'll go back to Minish Cap. Maybe I'll finally go back to Tears. I don't know. I mean, I got to play some other Zelda games for sure. There's a lot I've not played. So I need to get on that for sure. Maybe I'll play the Hyrule Warriors games. I know those are a little different. There's no reason I can't play those and a Zelda game at the same time, an actual Zelda game. So I might end up doing that. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll play A Link Between Worlds. That's one I want to play, even though it's on 3DS. I don't really love playing things on 3DS, but I think I'll suck it up to play a good game. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back to like A Link to the Past. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not set on anything, but I definitely, and I mean, to be fair, I probably won't beat Wind Waker for a long time, but I'm not set on anything, so we'll have to see what happens. I guess I don't really want to do any story spoilers for Wind Waker. To be fair, I'm only a couple hours in. There's not much I've done. I talked to a lot of people on the Starter Island. I went and I did the first, I don't know if it's considered a dungeon, is it? I don't think it's a dungeon. It's like a little mini dungeon, like there's a couple enemies or something. I did those. I left that island, and I went to the first dungeon, and I found the first dungeon a little tricky, which does concern me, but I have heard that the Wind Waker dungeons are very easy, so hopefully this is just a weird one. We'll see what happens. But I really didn't actually enjoy the first dungeon, even though I was having a little bit of trouble. I thought it was actually very fun. It just felt like it was well designed. I don't know if anybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sure there are people, but not everybody's played it. So anybody who has played Wind Waker, I was really liking the first dungeon, and I liked the place you go after the first dungeon as well. And I'm actually getting ready to leave there, and I'm getting ready to go off and be independent, and I can go wherever I want. I'm not gonna say any more than that, but that's at the point of the game I'm at, and I haven't done it yet because it seems a little intimidating, and I'm not entirely sure how to traverse things. So I'm still, I got to figure that out. But I got to pick a night where I have a lot of time. Actually, tonight would have been fine, but I'm recording the podcast, and definitely want to do that. So I might do it tomorrow if I don't stream. We'll see what happens. I need to continue with that game because I was really loving it. But it's one of those things that I don't want to play in short bursts. I want to play it in longer chunks. But that's good because Mario Kart World is something I want to play in shorter chunks. So they pair decently nicely. For me, like Wind Waker is the real launch game of the Switch 2, with Mario Kart World as the secondary thing. So that's probably all I'm going to say about Wind Waker. I didn't really play a ton of it. Played a couple hours, and I definitely was slow. I definitely could have got a lot farther in those. Well, I should say it's probably closer to 3 or 4. I could have got a lot farther in those few hours, but I was having a lot of fun going at a slower pace. So I'll probably end up taking a long time on this one, and I'm totally okay with that because it's a great game, at least so far, and I imagine it'll continue to be. And that's probably all I'll say about Wind Waker. I did boot up Bravely Default. The Bravely Default, the Flying Fairy remaster. This is the remaster of that first 3DS game from Square Enix. The reason I was originally interested in this one is because I'm currently trying to get into RPGs and stuff, JRPGs, I should say, and so I've played a few, so far. But I Bravely Default, it was coming to Switch 2. It was only going to be $40. It was a Square Enix RPG. I mean, there were a lot of things that the stars were aligning, right? And I was definitely interested in it. And so I got it, tried it out, played the first 30 minutes or so. It's pretty good. I'm not like immediately hooked, which I find concerning because the game's 50 hours long. Uh, so I'm not entirely sure. But I am going to keep playing it. I just, I haven't touched it in a couple days. So I will go back to it. I probably will play it through, but I mean, it's hard to say. That's 50 hours in the future. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe I'll fall off at some point. I guess I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if I did. But that's just, that's kind of where I'm at on that stuff. It seemed all right. I liked the art style, not in the cutscenes. I didn't like the art style in at least the opening cutscenes. The cutscenes later were a little bit less anime-y, but the earlier cutscenes, it was like what really wasn't liking. I didn't like the art style, but later on it was all right. So I hope most of the cutscenes in the game are more in that art style that I enjoyed a little bit more. So we'll see what happens. But I don't have much else to say on Bravely Default. It seems alright. I did actually kind of like the combat system with the the Brave and the default mechanic. So I'm interested to see where I go. I got my second party member, but I haven't used them. I'm interested to see where this game will go. So I'm going to go back to it. I just haven't quite yet. Maybe that's the thing that I'll end up playing in handheld mode a lot. We'll see what happens. So that's Bravely Default. Again, I only played, I think it was actually like 25 minutes, so I really have very little to say. So I guess I'll move on to the final thing that I've been playing. Actually, no, there's two. Sorry. Penultimate thing I've been playing on Switch 2 because the last one I started just this morning. I started last night, or maybe it's the night before. I can't remember. I think it was last night. I started Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. So Welcome Tour, I complained a lot on the show about how, oh my gosh, how are they going to charge $10 for this Welcome Tour? It's overpriced. How could they? It should be free. They should have it with Switch Online, which is all still true. It should be with Switch Online. It should be free. I don't think, and maybe this is unpopular, maybe I'm a Nintendo fanboy, I don't think it's that bad for $10. It could be worse. It could be 20. 20 would be pretty crazy. And obviously, a full price game or even like a $40 game would be absolutely absurd. Nobody would buy it. So for 10, I don't think it's actually that bad. I wish it was free. It probably should be free. Honestly, they could like pre-download it on the console, as like the Astro's Playroom of the console. They could, link you to it. They could give you a code for it. They could put it free on Switch Online. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do that would make more sense. But charging $10 for it doesn't seem quite so crazy when you try the game, because to be fair, it does seem like a lot of love and a lot of attention and a lot of care, and likely a lot of time was put into this game. So it makes sense that they would want you to pay for it, at least a little bit. I actually think 5 would have been a better price point, but again, I don't think the $10 is that bad. It's okay. I paid it. I got it. I booted it up. You have to choose your character, and then you gotta go on to the Switch 2. You're actually walking around on the Switch 2. You're like a faceless character, and you're walking around on the console. You start out on the left Joy-Con, and you can go around. There's these like infographics. There's these panels. There's people to talk to. I will say most of the dialogue didn't seem like it was relevant. It was like, oh, welcome to the Switch 2 welcome tour, or oh, what's your name? Mine's Ashley. Like, it just, there wasn't like, didn't seem relevant. I thought they were going to tell me cool things like, oh, did you know that the, electromagnets in the I mean, whatever, right? I thought there was going to be stuff like that. But no, it was mostly like, just filler dialogue, which is fine. I mean, it was alright. I'm sure there's some good stuff in there. And then the main part of the game is you walking around and you collect these stamps. So, for example, you go up to the joystick. You go under the joystick, there's a stamp, and it's like, the joystick, and then it kind of tells you what it does. Or you go over and it's like, you can go click on the left button, and it's like, oh, the left button. You click L and I don't know, whatever, it's on the Joy-Con. And then next to it's the ZL button, and then there's the on the back, there's the trigger to release the magnet. I mean, and then you go along the side, there's the sync button, and there's the mouse foot, and there's the optical sensor, and like, they show you all the parts, and they talk a little bit about each one. And then also on the Joy-Con, there's the mini games, and the mini games were mostly why I was there. On the left Joy-Con, it seemed like all of the mini games were based on, actually, they were based on two things: HD Rumble and the mouse controls. There was an HD Rumble mini game where you had to move the Joy-Con around as a mouse, and you had to stop at a point. There's different stages of the game. So you'll do the first one, do the first challenge. If you do well enough, you get 2 golden medals. If you don't do quite so well, you get 1 golden medal. And so I was going for 2 on each one. And the first stage of the Rumble one is you slide the Joy-Con around the table horizontally, and you just feel the vibrations and try to figure out where the vibration is strongest. It's almost like that one moon or the couple moons in Odyssey where the floor is shaking and you've got to go ground pound on the floor. It's that kind of idea, right? And so you'll click wherever you think the vibration is strongest. If you get within however many millimeters or whatever, you get the 2 medals. If you get just within half that range, or within twice that range, you get the 1 medal. It actually took me quite a number of attempts. I'm not sure if I just didn't feel like the rumble was accurate, or if I was just being stupid, or what exactly the problem was. But I struggled a little bit. The second round of that same game, I actually couldn't get the second medal for. The second round, it's not like you go straight from one to the next. You actually have to unlock the next one if you have enough medals. I happened to. But the second round, you can like move the cursor in all directions. So there's a x-axis and a y-axis. And it's the same premise. You have to find where the vibration is strongest. If you get within how much distance, you get a medal. If you get within closer, you get 2 medals. I cannot get the second medal on that. I'm going to have to keep trying. So that's where I'm at. And then the other minigame that I tried was a little bit more engaging. You have to slide the mouse around on the table, and you play as the UFO. They actually showed this one in the trailer. You play as a UFO, you slide the mouse around, and you have to dodge the falling asteroids. And that was actually pretty easy. I did it, in a few attempts. And then the second game, is there's actually more spikes falling. But now, instead of surviving for a certain amount of time, you have to collect these other things that are falling. They're like these star-shaped objects. And you have to collect however many in the same amount of time. And that was quite a bit harder. I was struggling for quite a while on it. I would say 10, 15 minutes, which is like a good number of tries. These are like pretty short games. Most of them, they take a minute or less. I was struggling quite a bit. I was using the mouse just on my table. And then I realized, I was like, well, you know what? They've always been advertising about how you're supposed to use them on your legs. Maybe I'll just try doing it on my leg. That wasn't working either. And so I was like, okay, is this mouse just not very accurate, or am I just really, really bad at this game? I tried putting on the Joy-Con straps, which helped a little bit, but it still didn't feel quite right. And so finally, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to grab a mouse pad and see if that helps. I put the mouse pad down, did the game first try. So, yes, these mice are fairly accurate on your lap or on a table. They are still far more accurate with a mouse pad, at least from what I've found, which is interesting and not terribly unexpected. But they positioned it as if you definitely didn't need a mouse pad. I would say you probably still should have a mouse pad for most things you're going to do. I guess if you're super hardcore, you've got to be super accurate. If you're a super casual player, you might not even notice the difference. But people that are more into it, especially people who have used mice in games before on computer, you're definitely going to have problems without a mouse pad, I would think. Unless I'm just crazy. So that was an interesting discovery to be made. And yeah, so I've been using the mouse pad when doing those mini games. But when just, navigating menus or when just, walking around the game, I'm totally content with just using the mouse on the table. It's not really a problem. It's only a problem in those super precise scenarios. I'm a little concerned about a game like Metroid Prime 4. Maybe you will actually want it to use a mouse pad. But we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, I might not even, if I play that game, because I've actually got to play the other Metroid games, or the other two Metroid Prime games after one before I do, and I'm still waiting for them to give me remasters or something of those. So if I do end up playing that, then I might just use the regular joystick controls anyways. But I'll definitely at least try the mouse controls. We'll see what happens. So yeah, I only played about half an hour of Welcome Tour. As you've noticed, I've played quite a bit of Mario Kart, quite a bit of Wind Waker, but not quite so much of anything else. I've just been dabbling in other stuff. That's really all I've got to say about Welcome Tour, but actually, I guess I should end on Welcome Tour is actually quite good. I think it's an entertaining game. I think a lot of people should play it. I think there's a lot of good information in there, a lot of cool stuff that I learned, like the optical sensor on the Joy-Cons that, it's the camera that detects the motion. Actually has less pixels in it than the Game Boy Color camera that you would put on the top of the Game Boy. So, there's interesting little tidbits about stuff like that, fun little, callbacks to old things, and some fun mini games packed in there too. So there's a lot of stuff. There's like quizzes and stuff. The quizzes are actually very easy. It'll come up. It'll be like, go to these 4 infographics and read about this stuff, and then do a quiz. And I'll be like, okay, and I'll get all 4 right. It's not hard, but it's still fun reading those infographics. That's where you get a lot of those information points about like the camera and how this stuff works and how the magnets work and where they're located and all that stuff. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that. And I think Welcome Tour is actually pretty cool. I think it's a cool game. And I guess the last thing I'll talk about game-wise, at least games I played on Switch too, because I'm also going to talk about Summer Games Fest and announcements from Summer Games Fest. The last thing I'll talk about as far as games I played is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. So Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons is a Joseph Harris. Is it Joseph Harris? I think it's Joseph Harris. He's the guy. He's also behind It Takes Two and recently Split Fiction. So he's recently has made a lot of co-op 3D platformers, but his first thing was actually a single player. Some people have called it single player co-op because you have to control 2 characters, but you're playing as one person. Although actually there is a multiplayer mode, you could play this with 2 players if you wanted. Which, to be fair, moving 2 controllers around with separate joysticks can feel a little weird at times, and I'm still not fully adjusted to it. I only played about 45 minutes, but I'm not fully adjusted to it. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. But yeah, this game is super narrative driven, but there's also, they speak a different language. Like, they don't even speak any real language. They, made it up completely for the game, which is kind of an interesting idea. And it's just that they didn't want to put in actual dialogue. So they did that, and I think that's fine. I don't think this game needs dialogue. All the story points are very obvious, which is good. I like that. I think it's you don't really need these crazy big stories. Sometimes they're nice in certain games, but especially in a scenario like this, I really do kind of like the more low key storytelling. So it's a very story-based game. It's a very puzzle-based game. So sometimes there's different things that each brother can do. There's the little brother a lot of people know about this game, but I'll still talk about it anyway. The little brother can't swim, so we have to ride on the big brother's back. If there's water, you can't have brothers separated where there's water. But the little brother can fit through smaller cracks and bars and stuff. The big brother moves a little faster. He's got longer legs. He runs a little faster. They're pretty similar on a lot of other things. So, I mean, a lot of times you can use either one. There's also situations where you might have to boost the little brother up using the big brother, and then he has to go up and hit a switch or let down a rope or something for the other brother. So, there's a lot of weird things like that. And the whole premise is you're like, there's this like father who's like dying. It's their father, and they take him to some, doctor, and he's like, there's one cure or whatever, and you've got to go off to some foreign land to go find it or whatever. And so they're just on a mission to save their father. And you go down the road, you're walking down a path, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's like someone trying to stop you, or there's some obstacle in the way, there's a mountain or something, and then you have to climb it. And when you get over the other side, boom, there's a new problem, and there's a new problem, there's a new problem. So it's just puzzle after puzzle. There's not a ton in between, which is fine. I think that it makes a lot of sense. There's a couple cutscenes here and there. It's very simplistic, too. You have to move around, and you have one action button for each brother. So you'll be moving around, you'll use, the left joystick for the older brother and ZL for the older brother, or you'll move the right joystick for the younger brother and ZR for his action button. And that button is just situational. So, you'll be at a lever and the button will pull the lever, or you'll be at a ball and the button will throw the ball. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right? So, and there was a fun moment where I had both brothers, and there was this basketball that you could steal from this other child, and I was passing it back and forth between the brothers for a while, because it felt really intuitive, controlling them and moving them around and stuff. So I think it's a nice system, moving both of them around. I think this game could also benefit from co-op, and obviously it does have co-op. So I think it would be also fun if you played co-op with this game. But I think it's also fun how it is, how I'm playing it as a single player thing. So I personally am so far really enjoying this game. I imagine I'll probably have it beat for next time. It's probably only going to take another couple sessions. I don't think it'll be a week thing. It'll be a pretty short thing. And then who knows? Maybe I'll move on to Golf Story, or maybe maybe by then I'll have Sonic Time Shadow Generations. Or maybe I'm actually thinking of buying Super Meat Boy next on Steam, not on Switch, on Steam. So maybe I'll do that. We'll see. So I'll probably have more indie stuff to talk about next week. At least I'll talk more about Brothers, I would imagine. So we'll see what happens. I guess that is kind of all I have to talk about with the Switch 2. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more after. But for now, I think that's all I've got to say about that. We're going to take yet another music break. And then we're going to be back, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the bigger things I liked from Summer Games Fest. I'm probably not going to touch on every little detail, but I've definitely got some opinions on some of the bigger stuff, especially out of that Xbox showcase, because I think the Xbox showcase was maybe a little bit more eventful than the regular Summer Games showcase. So we'll be back. I'll talk about that stuff. See you then. And we're back once again to talk about Summer Games Fest, because even though this week has been so eventful with the launch of the Switch 2 and things like that, it's also been so eventful because of Summer Games Fest. It's been a big thing this week, as obviously I'm imagining most of you know. So it only makes sense that we're going to start chronologically. We're going to start with the main show of Summer Games Fest, then we'll talk about the Xbox show, and then I'll talk about some other little tidbits from the couple things I saw of like Day of the Devs or that kind of thing, because I actually didn't watch those through. I just kind of skimmed them. So the main show, I'll kind of talk about everything, or at least mention everything by name. I might not have anything to say about some things, but if I have stuff to say, I'll say it, because obviously. Anyways. So the first game, so actually they opened the show, we saw Keeley again, he had bright yellow shoes. He had like these shoes. I don't know, man. I don't know if they were the thing. They were they were very yellow. But anyways, so Keeley had his yellow shoes. He comes out and he's talking about the best-selling games on Steam so far this year. I know Claire Obscure was pretty high up there. Honestly, I didn't even recognize a lot of the other stuff. It's a lot of indie stuff that I'm just not familiar with. Most of the indie stuff that I am at least somewhat familiar with, if I haven't played it, is stuff from several years ago. Because indie stuff doesn't tend to like get as much attention right on launch, at least from the mainstream audience. And I'm definitely not part of the mainstream audience, but I'm also not part of the hardcore. Well, maybe I'm part of the hardcore. I'm not like the top percent. I'm like a couple percent down probably. So the top percent will find those things, and then after that, I'll find those things, and then the mainstream audience will find those things. But with indie games specifically, I think I'm actually behind the mainstream audience. So, anyways, that's not the point. The first actual game announcement was Mortal Shell 2, which is crazy because I'd never even heard of Mortal Shell 1. I don't know hardly anything about this game. It is a video game. It looked a little weird. Obviously it's another like shooter. It's I don't know. I'm sure it's actually a lot like the first one, and anybody that's played the first Mortal Shell will probably not at all be surprised by like you know the fact that another one's coming out, but I'm surprised because I didn't realize that was even a thing. Then of course we got our biannually, or wait, biannually is every 6 months, right? Or no, semi-annually is 6 months. Biannually is 2 years. Okay, so semi-annually we got our semi-annually appearance from Hideo Kojima, talking about Death Stranding 2. I'm telling you, that guy is at every Keeley event ever. They must be like really good friends or something. I don't know. Which is cool. I like him. I think he seems nice. I mean, I've never played any of his games. I talked about him a little bit earlier on the show as well. But yeah, I mean, Kojima came out. He really, I mean, he didn't really say much. But then we got a Death Stranding 2 trailer. I've never played Death Stranding 1, so this really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. And I may at some point play Death Stranding 1, but I'm not like looking to anytime too soon. So I'm not like, this isn't like crazy for me. It's like, oh my gosh, like I'm just like whatever. Oh, Kojima, cool, whatever, right? And that's my opinion. I'm like, oh, that's Kojima. Um, so yeah, I'm not really looking at this necessarily. I'm not really too interested. Then we got Chronicles Medieval, which, by the way, that's the other way around would have made more sense. Medieval Chronicles, I don't know, but apparently this is a series of games. I think they look like kind of RTS. I think they're RTSy, right? It's kind of like, but it's not the same. It's not like a four-axis game where it's kind of top-down, but I think it technically would count as real-time strategy, and you're like commanding an army and stuff. And actually, it looked really cool. I do like medieval stuff. I'm a big fan of medieval stuff, fantasy stuff. So I thought it actually looked kind of neat, but I'm actually probably never going to play it because it just didn't really seem like anything. It didn't seem like there was much going on. Like it seemed pretty uninvolved. Like I guess it's actually probably quite involved. It didn't seem like anything was going on that I was super into. Like it's just you're just commanding armies, and that's cool to a point. But there's got to be something else to it, and I don't think there's really much else to it. But it does look cool. I'll say that. I'll probably when this comes out, I'll probably look at some gameplay footage and watch some stuff with it because I think it'll be cool. The next one was actually quite big news. I'll probably talk a little bit more about this one. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So of course we got what's the guy? Takashi Iizuka. Is that the right one? I think so. The guy who made Sonic. He came out and he talked about Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So there's been a few Sonic Racers over the years. Obviously, like one of the more recent ones, and probably the most popular of them being Sonic Team Racing or Team Sonic Racing, or whatever it's called. You know the one I'm talking about. And so they're making another one, which isn't surprising at all. It makes sense that they would make another one. It doesn't make sense that they would put this out the same year as Mario Kart. I feel like they should have waited or put it out earlier. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that you want to be putting out the same year as Mario Kart, unless you're just directly trying to compete with Mario Kart. But that doesn't seem like the smartest idea. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a little weird to be putting this out this year. But if they want to give it a shot, if they want to try to take some market share for Mario Kart, I mean, obviously, I'd like Mario Kart to succeed. I'm a Nintendo guy. I don't want Nintendo to, all of a sudden not succeed. but at the same time, a little bit more competition in the kart racers will make them better. So I'm not totally opposed to the idea of Sonic blowing up in the racing space. I don't think he will, though, is the thing. I don't think this is actually going to be anything crazy, this Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. It does seem cool. From the initial gameplay, even before we found out about the crossover stuff, it seemed actually quite cool. I liked the gameplay. I was honestly immediately interested. I was like, wow, this actually looks pretty cool. I don't know if I'll actually end up playing it, but I thought it was pretty neat. Then, after they talked about it a little bit, they showed a promotion with Minecraft where you can race as Steve and I think Alex from Minecraft. And that was pretty cool. And they had Hatsune Miku, and they had Ichiban, I think. Ichiban Kasuga. There you go. I looked it up. You had him also from Yakuza, and also Joker from Persona 5. So there was a lot of crossover stuff. I guess that's why it's called Cross Worlds. Which is funny because at one point the rumor was that the next Mario Kart was going to be titled Crossroads. So maybe they, maybe the leakers got the wrong source. Maybe the people they were looking for were at Sega. I don't know. Anyways, so I've already heard people online. This has been a big thing online. It's honestly one of the things from Summer Games Fest that's probably getting the most attention online. The Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. A lot of people are already comparing it to Smash Brothers. They're like, it's the Smash Brothers of racing. It's the Smash Brothers of kart racing. I don't think that's true. Sure, they've got a lot of crossovers so far. Actually, so far, just a few. But I think the big thing with Smash Brothers is that it's got the most recognizable IPs in gaming, right? And obviously, Mario is the most recognizable IP in gaming. And Sonic's pretty far up there, right? I mean, obviously, he's pretty good. I mean, there's some Nintendo things that are probably above him, but he's pretty far up there. However, Hatsune Miku and Ichiban Kasuga, those are not some of the most recognizable IPs in gaming. Steve from Minecraft, yeah, probably, I would say. But, and I'm not saying everybody in Smash Brothers is super recognizable. I mean, Ice Climbers, really? Not so much, right? But it seems like there's a lot more in Smash Brothers that really is, like, that's what makes Smash Brothers, is that there's these, like, crazy big characters, and they have these, I mean, like, even, like, well, Joker, I guess, is actually pretty big, and he's in Smash Brothers as well. But it seems like the kind of thing that if they really want to make this successful, they're going to need all of the most successful IPs, not just one of the most successful IPs. And so they're going to need Pac-Man. They're probably going to want to continue with that collaboration with Microsoft, and they're going to want to get Master Chief. They're going to want to get Doom Guy. They're going to want to get all this stuff. I'm not entirely sure they can do that. And even if they do manage to do all that, they're never going to get Mario, right? Because I mean, Nintendo's obviously not going to agree to put Mario in another kart racer, so they're never going to get Mario. They're probably never going to get a single Nintendo character. And without a single Nintendo character, this game cannot be a Smash Brothers. Not just because Smash Brothers has Nintendo characters, but because Smash Brothers has the most recognizable IPs, and Nintendo IPs happen to be the most recognizable IPs. Like, if you look at the list of, like, most recognizable IPs, it's probably, like, almost all Nintendo in the top 10, at least in gaming. So, I really don't think this thing can be a Smash Brothers without the Nintendo IPs. It can be somewhat similar, and it can be cool and exciting, but it can't have quite that same weight without the Nintendo IPs, in my opinion. I mean, well, not even really, I think that's just fact, honestly. I mean, feel free to prove me wrong if this game ends up being crazy huge and, the reveals of the new characters are earth-shattering. I mean, cool, right? And that would be great, and I would happily admit that I was wrong. But I don't think I'm going to be wrong on this one. I think this is definitely something that I'll be correct on. So, I don't know. I mean, and that said, I think the game looks cool. It looks like the mechanics are there. Obviously, we won't know until it's closer to out. Maybe the reviewers will have some opinions and stuff. Or when it actually comes out, possibly. I'm actually thinking of picking this up. Like, I'm sort of interested. I don't know when. I don't actually know when exactly this is coming out. Did we get some sort of date on that? Let me quickly watch this for see if there was a date. September 25th. Okay. September 25th. Yeah, that's I don't really know of anything else coming out at that time. I might actually pick that up. I'm kind of thinking about it. Yeah. Oh, and it's coming to Switch 1 as well. So it's coming to PS5, Xbox Series X, Switch 2, and Switch 1. That does make sense. Oh, and I guess PS4 as well. Maybe just digitally. But yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. Now that I'm thinking about it, so makes a lot of sense. The next thing was Code Vein 2, another thing that like I didn't even realize Code Vein 1 was a thing. This is some weird anime looking thing. I don't know, man. It's some like action, not quite like a character action, but like some sort of I don't know. It's like it's action combat. I mean, it's I don't really it doesn't really seem like it's I don't know. I don't know what's going on. There's some vampire stuff going on. Anybody who knows about Code Vein 1 would be a better opinion on this because personally, I really don't know much about this. So I don't know. Ask somebody who knows about Code Vein. The next thing was something being published by Epic. Now, Epic Games, obviously, they've published indie games before, but I feel like they don't usually. It's been a while. I feel that they've actually done a whole lot of publishing, but they had two games this presentation. So the first one was End of Abyss. Sorry, End of Abyss. It's like a top-down shooter. Indie game. It looks very dark, very eerie, very gloomy. I already put it on my Deku deals for when it comes out because it looks awesome. I'm actually quite interested in this. I don't think we really know much about it, to be honest. Yeah, just coming next year, so there's not many things detail wise, but it does look pretty cool. It's being published by Epic. Yeah. Oh, from Section 9. Okay, Section 9. Yeah, I've actually forgot. That's by Section 9. So I guess that's why it looks cool. I've heard Section 9 make good things, so. Alright, the next thing was also an indie game, I believe. I think that's an indie game. Mouse PI for Hire. So this is black and white 2D shooter. And once again, this also looked pretty cool. Even though, again, I'm not really too into shooters, these last two did look pretty neat because they're so different, and they seem like they're not, the online multiplayer shooters. They're just kind of like single-player things with gun elements. Um, it's based off a 1930s style, which is crazy. I didn't realize that they didn't have color in the 1930s. I didn't realize they were all living in black and white back then. I'm kidding. But anyways, it's inspired by classic cartoons from the 1930s, apparently. Apparently, it's coming out later this year. And yeah, it looked really cool. I actually liked, like, you saw quite a few different guns he was using. You saw, like, he used a can of beans for whatever reason. I mean, there was a lot of weird, funny, goofy, wacky looking stuff. And again, I think I already wishlisted this one, or not wishlisted, put it on Deku deals, because this looks pretty cool, and I'm actually quite interested in it. And again, we don't have much information on this. But that's alright, I'm sure we'll hear about it again at some point. The next thing for the actual main show of the Summer Games Fest was Game of Thrones War for Westeros. I have never watched Game of Thrones, I really don't have a ton of interest. When I saw this, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, it's an RTS. Which, I mean, I'm not like a fan of RTSs or anything, but I just, I immediately caught it. I was like, this is totally an RTS game. And I think it was partially because we had just seen Chronicles Medieval just earlier, and that was an RTS. So I was like, this looks exactly like that. Must be another RTS. And turns out, yep, indeed, it's another RTS based off Game of Thrones. If you watch my live reaction, I was listening to the music, and it kept playing. I was like, wait, is this? What is this? What is this? I don't know what this music is. I don't know what this music is. And then it finally hit me towards the end, shortly before they actually said the name. I was like, oh wait, that's totally Game of Thrones. So, yeah, Game of Thrones, RTS. I guess that's not really shocking that something like that would happen. Then the next thing was Atomic Heart 2. This trailer was interesting at points, a little interesting. Just go watch the trailer. You know what I'm talking about. But I don't know. It was. I don't know. It doesn't really. It's just. I don't want to talk much on this. It just doesn't really seem like at all my kind of thing. Watch the trailer and you'll realize it's weird. I'm not into that. The next one is actually kind of a neat looking thing. The Cube. So the Cube is a shooter, online shooter. I'm not into online shooters at all. However, this does seem like an interesting one because it's on a cube and the cube like rotates around and. We don't actually know all the details on what that actually does, but it apparently changes the gameplay, and there's different areas of the cube that thematically look different. I think that's pretty cool. And if there's a campaign and this thing eventually goes on sale or something, I might actually consider it because I think that's actually kind of a neat idea. At least to just play the campaign. I don't really have any interest in the online. But yes, it seems like something that has a nice idea to it. It's like Titanfall or something, like an online shooter that has a strange twist to it that actually I think maybe adds to it. Whereas a lot of them have either no twist or the twist doesn't really do much. It just kind of whatever. The next thing was Marvel Cosmic Invasion. Of course, we saw Cosmic Invasion for the first time at that March 27th Switch Direct. And then we saw it again at the Switch 2 presentation, and now we've seen it again at Summer Games Fest. And they announced a few more characters. She-Hulk, Rocket Raccoon. I don't know if that was it. Yeah, it looks like that was it. She-Hulk and Rocket Raccoon. And this is a beat 'em up. It's by the same people that made TMNT Shredder's Revenge. Beat 'em ups have really been coming back in the last 5 years or so, and I'm kind of here for it. Especially after playing these Turtles games recently. I don't really mind the beat 'em ups. I think they're kind of interesting things. I'm interested in playing more. I haven't played many just yet, so I'm actually kind of considering this Cosmic Invasion. It'll probably just be something where if it ever goes on sale physically, I'll buy it at some point. But I'm probably not going to rush out immediately to get it. Comes out this holiday, so I'm not super into it immediately, but it's the kind of thing that I could possibly get into at some point. I'm at least somewhat interested in it. The next thing, Onimusha Way of the Sword. This was a samurai, it looks like sort of like a hack and slash, but some story-based stuff as well. This was that big Capcom game from the trailer. There were some leaks about a big Capcom game. I think this must be what they were talking about, because this does look like it'll be a big deal for some people. I mean, personally, it doesn't really seem like it'll do much for me, but, I won't ever play it, probably, so we'll move on with that. The next one was a really strange thing. It's a boxing game with puppets. And I'm still a little confused. Like, is there any way you can control these puppets, or are you literally just playing the game as a puppet, and, the puppets are just there just because? I'm a little confused. This feels like the kind of thing that would do really well in, VR. But I don't think it's actually coming to any VR console. I think it's just it's just a Steam thing for now. So this seems like the kind of thing that they made with VR, or at least motion controls. Maybe Switch 2, actually. VR and Switch 2 would both be good things for this. It seems like they made that with those ideas in mind, but because they're new, they're a smaller studio and stuff, they just kind of, put it out here. And they figured maybe later on they can get it on consoles. That's my take from this, at least. It feels like the kind of thing that's almost inspired by Punch-Out! In a way, or Wii Sports Boxing. It feels like that idea. Maybe I'm totally off on that, but that's kind of that's what I was getting out of that. The next thing, Killer Inn. Killer Inn it's literally just murder mystery. It's like just any old murder mystery game. I mean, I guess it seems like there's some interesting things. I mean, the actual gameplay. It's like if murder mystery was like some sort of fan-made mode in Fork Knife or something like that. That's what I took out of this, and I'm not sure. Maybe that's not, maybe that's not good to say. Maybe that's kind of, I'm trying to think of the word here. Maybe that's offensive to the game and the people that made it. So I apologize if it is, but that's just that was what I took away from this. All right, next up we have Arc Raiders. It's another online shooter. The interesting thing and the unique thing about this one was that it was actually announced originally at the Game Awards 2021. So it's been very long development cycle, apparently. Seems weird for a game like an online shooter to take that long to develop. So they must have at least ran into some hoops, or I don't know, some sort of weird something happened with that, or maybe they got caught up with licensing, or I don't know. I'm not sure how that could have happened, but must be something weird happened here. They also had Dune Awakening was the next thing. I have never played a Dune game. I don't know much about Dune. I will say, though, this looked pretty cool. I thought it seemed pretty interesting. The stuff in the desert, it's almost like a lunar rover that you move on the ground, on Earth. Or I don't know if they're on Earth, but wherever they are. That seemed pretty cool as well. So there's definitely interesting stuff here. But I'm not really terribly familiar with Dune, or actually, I'm not really familiar at all with Dune, but apparently it already came out. Now that I'm reading this, it came out a few days ago. So I don't know. That's interesting, I guess. Chrono Odyssey, another MMO. It looks actually a little Souls-like in the combat, sort of hack and slashy. That's kind of what I took away from it. Apparently, this is only coming out on PS5 at least so far, which is interesting. It's funny because, Chrono, when I see Chrono, I think like Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross, but this has absolutely nothing to do with those two games at all. This is a totally different thing, which is cool. It just, it seemed like the kind of thing that had some sort of tie-in just based on the title, but it's not. If you would have told somebody from the future that a game called Chrono Odyssey was coming out, they probably would have assumed it was, a successor to Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross in some way. The next thing was a little strange looking. Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny. There's been a lot of these, Nickelodeon crossover games. You had Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, Nickelodeon, like, Kart Racers or whatever. This one seems like some sort of... I don't actually know what you call this kind of a game. Honestly, it looks like a mobile game. And again, I'm not trying to be offensive or whatever. I mean, that's just... It really just... That's what it looks like to me. And I don't know, it looks fine. I mean, I'm sure this is obviously intended for children, young children. I mean, that's obviously what they're they're trying to appeal to here. And that's cool. I don't have any qualms with a game like this existing. I'm personally not super into it though. So I'd probably play it before some things here in this presentation, but I'm not exactly jumping up and down to play it. Next up, we had another weird anime-looking thing, Wuthering Waves. I don't know, man. This looked like a kind of thing that's like sort of like Genshin Impact-y or Honkai Star rarely. I don't really. Maybe that's completely wrong, maybe because I've never played those games, so maybe this is totally different. But it seemed like that kind of thing, like a gacha kind of thing. So I absolutely couldn't care less about this, to be honest with you. But so we'll move on. Next thing, Mio, Memories in Orbit. This was another indie thing. It's like a Metroidvania. It actually looks pretty cool, I think. I know, like, basically nothing about it, so I'm not going to comment too much on it. But I immediately went and wishlisted it on Deku Deals for when it comes out because it looks pretty cool, I think. Next up, Lego Voyagers. Lego Voyagers was... Well, it's a Lego game. It actually looked really neat, and I think this is the one, if I'm thinking correctly. Yeah, this is a co-op. Looks like some sort of platformer puzzle game kind of thing. It's a co-op game, which, I don't really play co-op games because I don't really have people to play co-op games with, but it almost seemed like a Snipper Clips kind of situation, where you can kind of, stack on top of each other and go through levels that way. And it definitely seems like a really cool thing where I imagine that a lot of these puzzles have multiple ways to solve them and stuff. It's the kind of thing that I'm almost considering, finding somebody to play a game like this with because it really just looked really cool. And I'm not like specifically into Legos or anything, so whatever. But I do think Legos are something that lend themselves well to this kind of a puzzly game, right? Because, building platforms and stuff, that's something you do in a lot of these puzzle games, a lot of these co-op games. But especially with Legos, it makes a lot of sense, right? That you would almost expect to do something like that in a Lego game. Actually, you definitely would. I say almost. Like, no, you would certainly expect to do that in a Lego game. That's almost the whole point of Legos. Next thing we had Mafia, the Old Country World. Again, I really don't have much to say. I mean, it's another, big... story-based thing. I'm sure if you want to hear about this stuff, I'm sure there's lots of people out there who can tell you about this stuff. I'm not the guy. I'm here for the weirder things. I don't know a lot of these big, third-party series that have, a lot of these have been out for a while, and I'm just not terribly familiar with a lot of these things. Then we had another co-op thing, another platformer sort of. Looks like it has some 2D and 3D aspects. Out of Worlds, and again, this is another one Out of Worlds World. That's kind of a weird name. Out of Worlds World. It makes me wonder, is there another Out of Worlds that I haven't heard of? I don't know. But anyways, it's another co-op thing. It also looked pretty cool, pretty good. It's the kind of thing that I might, again, at some point, if I ever have people to play games with, I might at some point consider that. but I'm just not really super into it, at least from initial looks. But it is the kind of thing that I would want to play announced here. It's the kind of thing also though that I kind of wish was just single player instead. Next up, Liza P. Overture. Liza P. is actually something I've heard of, so I am a little bit more familiar with this. I don't actually know much about it though. It's another. It looks sort of like a hack and slash character action kind of thing. A lot of these games look like those. They're like the Black Myth Wukongs of the world, if we want to relate it to something from last year. It's the kind of game that's trying to win in the action genre, for game of the year. If that's what they're going for, that's the kind of game they're making here. At least that's how I took it. The next one, Fractured Blooms. It's like another indie game that's like super calm and super relaxed, and there's like a little life sim. But then, boom! All of a sudden, it looks like the tomatoes bloom, and now all of a sudden, it's like a horror game. It's another one of those, one of those things that starts off nice, and then it transitions into a horror game. I think that's always kind of an interesting idea. So I'm sort of interested in this as well. I think I also went ahead and wishlisted this on Deku Deals. So I don't know if I'm actually going to play these things when they come out, but I'm kind of considering them, at least some of them. Crystal of Atten, or Atlin, I guess, is getting a collaboration with One Punch Man. He's the yellow guy with red gloves from the anime stuff, the bald guy. I don't know. I guess all I really need to say about this is when I was watching the trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, he's that one guy from that one anime. So that tells you all that I know, and all that you need to know about what I know from that. The next thing, it's another one. It's Jurassic World Evolution 3. Jurassic World Evolution 2, I actually just got for free on Epic a few months ago. A lot of people did. It was free. And it's like you kind of like build the park, the Jurassic Park. Interesting concept. I don't know much about how these games work. They almost seem like a Planet Zoo kind of, or a Planet Coaster kind of thing, at least from, what I'm seeing. And that's cool. Maybe at some point I'll actually try out Jurassic World Evolution 2, and if I somehow manage to fall in love with it, then maybe I would play the third one, but I don't really inherently have much interest. But it does seem like the kind of thing that's actually kind of neat. These Jurassic World Evolution games. Now we got another anime, indie, whatever. I don't know what's going on with this game. It's another weird anime thing. The Seven Deadly Sins Origin. I guess we can just gloss over that. Mina the Hollower. Mina the Hollower. I was actually very excited about this. So, Shovel Knight, right? Shovel Knight, named by Yacht Club Games. Yacht Club Games has basically just made Hollow Knight, as it turns out. I think they might have made something else. I don't know. They've basically just made Shovel Knight because that was so successful, and they ran with it. They did a bunch of games in that style. I still have not played Shovel Knight, but I do plan to at one point, or some point, I should say. Mina the Hollower, that is their next thing. Also based on, classic, NES style, Super Nintendo style, sort of blended together video games. So I'm definitely interested in this. I don't know much about it. I don't think anybody really knows much about it, but it does seem pretty cool. I mean, I say nobody, but I imagine the developers know much about it, but pretty much nobody else knows much about it. And I think it's pretty interesting. So I am interested in playing this. I will probably, this is already also on my Deku Deals thing. I will probably end up playing that at some point, but I've also got to play, at some point, Shovel Knight. So I might accelerate that and play that sooner so that I can actually get to this game. And I know there's a physical for that, then they're not that uncommon, so I might be able to get a physical for that. Now we've got Marvel's Deadpool VR. It's the kind of thing I expected a Deadpool game to come at some point. Obviously, there's been a lot of Marvel games. Obviously, there were Spider-Man games. And this is just in recent years. Obviously, there's been Marvel games forever. But especially recently, these big single-player ones. There's been, like, Spider-Man. They're working on Wolverine at Insomniac, supposedly. Although we still haven't heard about that. They're making Blade over at Bethesda. So, Deadpool seemed like one that would probably be made at some point. I did not expect it to be a VR thing, though. That's pretty weird. And honestly, this game looks awesome. If it was on Oculus 2, I probably would buy it. Because it's on 3, I don't have a 3. So at some point, if I ever get a 3, this might be something I try. I'm not really usually a fan of Deadpool, but this did seem pretty cool and pretty funny. So I may at some point, if I ever get a Quest 3, I might play this, but I'm not currently looking to. But again, I'll probably look into some stuff with it when it comes out. You know, read up on it because I'm definitely interested. It seems like a funny thing. Dying Light, the Beast, world premiere. They're all world premieres. What am I talking about? This is another looks like a zombie-ish kind of thing. I don't really know much about. I've never played a Dying Light or never heard much about a Dying Light, but I do believe Dying Light is a pre-existing thing. I believe there have been other Dying Light games, so I'm glad for those people that like that. And zombie games, they're not necessarily my thing, but I did like The Last of Us, at least part one. So I guess I'm not inherently opposed to this. I'm just not like inherently drawn to this either. So that's kind of where I'm at. Mixtape we saw at the Game Awards. We might have seen it elsewhere too. I'm not entirely sure. It's this like teenager thing, like I don't know, supposed to be like appealing to nostalgia for people of that age group. I am not of that age group. I guess the funny thing I can point out here. I guess the funniest thing about this for me is that the development studio behind this game is called Beethoven and Dinosaur. So that tells you all you need to know because that is hilarious. I mean, that's like the best. That's the best studio name I've ever heard. They grabbed two random things. They're like Beethoven and Dinosaur. That's what we're called. It's like they were high when they came up with that title. They may have been. We don't know. We'll never know. But I definitely do appreciate that because I don't know. I'm a fan of classical. I mean Beethoven's romantic, but I'm a fan of those periods of music. I don't actually like Beethoven much myself, but I appreciate the strangeness and the humor of it all. Next up, Toa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree. I have no idea what this is. It is some anime thing. Again, actually, it's not really anime. I shouldn't say anime for everything. It's an indie thing. It looks almost like a Fantasy Life, at least just based on the art style and stuff. I have no knowledge of the gameplay. I don't know what's up with that. But it seems just based on the animation of the gameplay itself, it looks like a Fantasy Life kind of thing. Next up, we've got Axe of Blood. This is another, looks like a hack and slash, beat 'em up kind of thing. He's like, you're swinging a baseball bat, swinging a whatever else. I don't know. You're swinging stuff. You're hitting people, they're bleeding profusely. That's what I took from this, and that's really all that can be took from this. I don't really know what else to say. I don't know. It's by somebody. I don't know. I can't. XC, XG, XG. I don't know. Who knows, right? I don't know. It's by those guys. So whatever that means. Another Scott Pilgrim game. I'm not familiar with Scott Pilgrim, but I believe he's been in some games. There's another one. I don't know if Scott Pilgrim's a real person or if that's a video game character. I don't know, man. It looks to me like that. What was that game on Genesis called? I feel like it started with an A, but there was that like kid that like walked around. Alex the Kid, that's what it was. It looked like that sort of thing. But like a beat 'em up, which is I'm happy for anybody who's played the other Scott Pilgrim stuff. I have not, so I'm not really. It seemed interesting. I guess I should say that. It did seem interesting. Next up, we got the First Ascendant. It's another big, third party, big. I don't know, man. It's something. Looks like you're driving motorcycles around. You're like, there's some big beast. It's like a Shadow of the Colossus kind of thing. Is that what I took from it? So I don't know if that's at all accurate, but that's what it seemed to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Scum version 1.0. I don't know if they meant to put that as part of the title. Seems a little strange. This game was it's just over the top mature just for the sake of it. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous and stupid, and I have zero interest in it. Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye. Yeah, it's another. It looks like sort of like a GTA or like a. I don't know, like a GTA. I'm trying to think of the other. What's that other series called? That's like also an open world crime kind of thing. Watch Dogs. Looks like a Watch Dogs kind of thing. That's what I took about it, or what I took about it. What I took away from it. That's what I meant to say. There's a new Hitman crossover with the Mind's Eye. The game that was just announced. There's a crossover with the same game and Hitman. It feels like there's been a lot of Hitman World of Assassination stuff. That's coming to Switch too, but it feels like they're just talking about it just all the time. Just all the time. All the time. I'm like, I had never even heard much about Hitman World of Assassination, but all of a sudden, boom. It's like everything is Hitman. It's crazy. And I guess there's some co-op mode for Hitman. I don't know, man. Whatever's going on there, who knows? Let's talk about Lego Party. Lego Party, it's Mario Party, but with Legos. Boom, that's all we need to say. They have the Ninjago IP in there. I'm a little curious with a game like this if they're going to try to get more IPs. They'll try to get, like, here would be great. They should put Lego Mario in Lego Party. And then we could have Mario in a knockoff Mario Party game. That would be kind of funny. But obviously that will not happen. But it makes me curious if they'll ever get some of the other IPs. But yeah, Lego Party, it's a party game. You get gold bricks instead of stars. It looks cool, honestly. I mean, it does look cool. If I was super into Mario Party, I would probably buy this game too. But I'm not, so I'm not really terribly interested. I'll just buy a Mario Party every now and then, and I'll be happy with myself, and that's all I'll ever do. Wild Gate, it's another shooter. It's a more cartoony looking one this time. It's online. It's you shoot people. That's where we're at with shooters. It's like, oh, you shoot people. Wow, what a mechanic right there. You shoot people. I don't know, man. Maybe this is supposed to be cooler than I'm giving it credit, but I just really don't care about most games with a gun at this point. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. I mean, it just feels like, generally speaking, I'm like, oh, it's a shooter. All right, well, fine. I guess I'm not playing that. I mean, there's still some. I just really don't care about most. Like, they're all the same game. I mean, you might as well just play Fork Knife at that point. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's why everybody does. It's just a mess, and it's always been a mess. It isn't like a new thing. I don't know, whatever. Let's talk about Blighted. So Blighted is the next game from Drinkbox Studios, which, by the way, we talked about Beethoven Dinosaur earlier. Drinkbox Studios, that might even be better. I guess what the difference is, I've heard of Drinkbox Studios before today, whereas I had not for Beethoven and Dinosaur, so I think that's why it kind of hit me more. But yeah, Drinkbox Studios, they're pretty well known. They put out Guacamelee, they put out Bastion, I think was them, right? Or was Bastion Super... No, Bastion was Supergiant, wasn't it? I'm thinking I'm getting my people mixed up here. Drinkbox. What else did Drinkbox make? Oh, duh, yeah. Severed, Nobody Saves the World. Yeah, Bastion must have been the other one, Supergiant. But yes, Drinkbox, they're a pretty well-known studio. They're making a game called Blighted. It seems like a 3D action brawler, not brawler, like a I don't know, like a 3D action thing. Almost like a beat 'em up, sort of like a dungeon crawler or something like that. With the whole premise being that there's like a blight that's taking over the world. I know, Blighted, right? Who would have thought? What a great name. So, I don't know, it actually did seem pretty interesting. This is another one that I put on my Deku Deals thing. If it sounds like I don't know much on a lot of these games, it's because I don't. I watched this thing like a week ago now, so not everything's like super fresh with me. I'm just trying to remember some of these things while reading through a list. It's another shooter, this time with zombies. It looks very horror-y. I was a little creeped out with some of the stuff in this trailer. I was like, good grief. Absolutely would not want to play that game. But I know there's people that will, so I'm happy for those people, but it seemed a little on the nose for me. I guess the cool thing was, like, I liked how, like, they showed a zombie getting shot in the arm, and he, like, dropped his weapon. Or they showed him getting shot in the foot, and he fell to the ground. Like, I liked those kind of things, because I think it's really cool when there's more realistic, like, sandbox physics in a game, So I thought that was an interesting idea. Mecha Break. There's mechs, you break them. Mecha Break, boom, got it. That's all you need, right? I mean, there's some mechs. There sure are mechs. There's lasers. There's some mechs. I don't know, lasers. Who knows? Infestimals. Let's talk about Infestimals. Infestimals. It was a big thing they were pushing with the Unreal Engine. You're like playing as bugs. You're playing as like some sort of like praying mantis looking thing. It looks very strange, very creepy. I don't like the idea of praying mantis having a human looking face, and you playing as him in a shooter game seems a little strange to me, but I guess the premise is kind of neat. And this is a big thing with Epic. They're trying to push the Epic Games, the Unreal Engine, and so this is a big thing for them to help push that engine. Street Fighter 6 Season 3, that's all we need to say about that. I don't know anything about it. I don't really care anything about it. The Last Flag, it's a game. It looks like Fork Knife. It's another, I guess it's a capture the flag though, but like artistically, it kind of looks like a Fork Knife thing, but capture the flag. I take this like this is like if Fork Knife added a capture the flag mode without guns. That's kind of how I look at this. Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers. I saw Wu Chang and I immediately thought of Black Myth Wukong, which is crazy because these games are nothing similar. This is a Souls-like, it's like an Elden Ring kind of thing, but it is Chinese. I don't know. Cool, I guess. So Wu Chang, not to be confused with Wu Tang, because there's also Wu Tang: Rise of the Receiver, which another. I don't know. It's another weird hack and slash action brawler, whatever else you want to call it. Make up whatever words you want. It's a weird looking thing. I'm not terribly invested. Into the Unwell. I'm going to be unwell if I keep reading all these things. Into the Unwell looked pretty cool. It was another kind of black and white, but there was a little bit of color. But it seemed like a lot of things were grayscale. It's another indie game. It looks like a 3D platformer at times. Just action adventure thing at times. There's a lot of elements, it seemed. I can't quite put my nose on exactly what you would call this kind of a game. But it does look pretty cool. Splitgate 2. Splitgate 2, the guy came out. He was wearing a Make Shooters Great Again shirt. Or Make FPS Great Again. Or not shirt, a hat. He was making it out like he was changing the world with his shooter. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like a shooter. It's like with portals. You got some portals. Anime shooter with portals. Yeah, I mean, it's just a shooter. It'll probably do pretty well. It seems like there's going to be a big marketing push behind it. But I don't really know much about this. I don't care to know much more about this, so I'm going to move on. Stranger Than Heaven. Stranger Than Heaven, it's strange. It's stranger than heaven, you could even say. I don't know much about this. There was a lot of blood, like just crazy amounts of blood. It was almost obnoxious. Actually, it definitely was obnoxious. So it looks like maybe this is coming from someone who hasn't played Red Dead, but it looks like you're controlling a guy straight out of Red Dead with his weird cowboy hat, except you're like in a city. So I'm happy for those people. Finally, the big last thing to end off the show, which I personally didn't have much interest in, Resident Evil 9, which, oh my gosh, who knew they were at 9? Like, that's crazy. 9? Really? Resident Evil 9. For people who care about that, I'm happy for them. I, at some point, may play some Resident Evils, but if I ever do, I'm not sure that I'll go through the whole thing, and if I do, then I probably won't be playing this for several years. So, I don't know much about it. I will say I did not realize it was Resident Evil until it popped up as Resident Evil, so there were probably cues to, signal you to that if you're someone who has played Resident Evil, but as someone who was not, I had no idea what was going on that entire trailer, and I was like, huh, it's a game, it's a video game, I like video game, I'm a video game kind of fan, so I didn't really know what was going on with that stuff, and I still don't, but, Resident Evil, cool, I guess. I guess I will take another music break. I know this is like the 5th one of the show, but it's a long, long show. And then we'll be back to talk about the Xbox Direct, which I think will go a little faster. There were less announcements in the Xbox Direct. So we'll be back in a second, and I'll talk about that stuff. Now, just in general, I did actually think that the Xbox Direct was a little bit better than the regular Summer Games Fest show. It felt like there was more going on. And it was also shorter, so there was less, lack of stuff in between. So I will talk about this real quick. And there's a few things I'm excited about. A lot of it I'm not as excited about. Like, just like with Summer Games Fest. A lot of it I don't care so much about, but I still like to watch the show. Alright, so the first announcement of the Xbox Games Showcase 2025 was The Outer Worlds 2. Now, I have not played The Outer Worlds 1. Outer Worlds is a game by Obsidian. It's a sci-fi RPG, is like how I would best describe it. And I don't know much about it, but I am actually really interested in playing The Outer Worlds at some point, and if I like it, maybe I'll play The Outer Worlds 2 as well. I know after this Xbox Game Showcase, they had a whole presentation focused on Obsidian, specifically on The Outer Worlds 2 and on... What was the other game? Shoot, I don't know. What was the other game that they also were talking about? I'm not sure. There was another game. Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, it was mostly on Outer Worlds 2 anyways. So Outer Worlds 2, they announced it. It didn't seem like, I mean, as somebody who hasn't played the other ones, I didn't feel that there was anything like that I noticed different. As someone who doesn't know much about Outer Worlds, but it looked cool. It looked cool, and it definitely reinforces to me that I should play the first Outer Worlds, and if I like it, move on to the second one. I don't know when this is coming out. When this is coming out? October 29th. Okay. So that's pretty cool. If I do end up playing it, it'll be on PS5, or if it comes to Switch too. I'm not going to play it on Xbox. I refuse to play stuff on Xbox for the most part. Next game, High on Life 2. High on Life 2, I had never even really heard of High on Life 1, but there were a lot of people excited about this, and it turns out this looks pretty cool, actually. I've got to say, this looks like an exciting, weird little... It's another shooter, and it is what it is, but it looked like it was a neat little thing, very movement and gameplay focused, I felt. So if I was going to play a shooter, this is another one that would be kind of neat. But I'm not going to play a shooter, so we'll move on. High on Life 2, yeah. Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy. I still don't know. I don't think this has anything to do with A Plague Tale Requiem or any of the other stuff. This is totally a different thing, I believe. Oh, never mind. No, okay, never mind. I actually just reading the blurb. This is actually related to A Plague Tale Requiem. Okay, so Plague Tale, it's like a whole series of games. Okay, so this tells you how much I'm knowledgeable on this stuff. I'm not all that knowledgeable on stuff. I will say, I was at a friend's house back in October. No, October? Yeah, October, I think. I was at a friend's house, and he, on his PS5, booted up A Plague Tale Requiem, and I was watching, and I was like, this actually looks pretty cool. Like, I thought it was a neat looking thing, so at some point, I'm interested to play some of the Plague Tale games, so I guess this is another one that's got to go on my list, but I don't know a whole lot about it. Apparently, it's not coming until 2026, which, I imagine that's the case with a lot of these games. The Blood of Dawn Walker, he's a walker in the dawn, I don't know. I was looking at this trailer and he just sliced someone's head off, so that's fun. Gotta love some decapitation, right? This is another big thing from Capcom. So Capcom, they've always got a big presence, but they had a really big presence this time as well. So I'm happy for them. They're gonna make a lot of money, so good for them. I don't know. It seemed fine. It was a very vampire-focused game. It seemed like it seemed like it was very based on vampire lore and stuff. So that's cool. It seems like it'll have a nice story and stuff, but I probably won't play it myself. The next announcement was probably my second favorite announcement from the entire Summer Games Fest, Xbox show and main show included, and that was Super Meat Boy 3D. I've been wanting to play Super Meat Boy, the first one, for a long time, and this has promoted me to buy it. So I think I'm going to end up buying it either tonight or tomorrow. When I'm recording this on Steam, because it's on sale right now for $3.74. So I'm probably going to buy it, play the original Super Meat Boy. I don't know, I've heard it's really hard. I don't know if I can play the full thing, but I at least want to try it out. And if I do play the full thing and I like it, I'm actually quite interested in this 3D one, because it looks really cool, and I like the idea that Super Meat Boy is coming to 3D. I actually never would have expected that another Meat Boy game would have came out. Like, I really kind of thought they were done with that. My favorite Nintendo podcast, actually favorite video game podcast, is This Nintendo Life, and they're big fans of Super Meat Boy over there. So I'm actually really excited to hear their opinions on Super Meat Boy 3D. So I don't know. Super Meat Boy 3D seemed cool. I'm actually very excited about it. I'm interested to play it when it comes out. It's not coming until next year though. Another one for next year. The next game was a really weird-looking one. They started out the trailer with all sorts of action combat stuff, and there was a ninja, like, partway through, a purple ninja. I was like, wait a minute, is this Ninja Gaiden? Like, there hasn't been a Ninja Gaiden game in a while. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, because then they cut away and they were showing other characters and people that weren't ninjas. And I was like, is this Ninja Gaiden? Sure enough, it was indeed Ninja Gaiden 4. So that's pretty cool. I've played quite a bit of the NES Ninja Gaiden. I think there were three actually back then, right? I played quite a bit of the first two. I could never beat the first one. I've played. It's my second most played game on the NES Switch Online app, behind Super Mario Brothers 3. So I thought it was really fun. I could not beat the final boss though. I really don't think Ninja Gaiden, the original NES game, is actually that hard until the final boss. Like the final boss is just impossible. I tried for probably almost 2 hours and couldn't beat it, so I just gave up. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not beating it. And this is with rewind and stuff. I tried it with rewind, with save states, all this stuff. I just couldn't do it. Obviously, the newer Ninja Gaiden games are absolutely nothing like the originals. They're completely separate. I think the first of these modern ones was on 360, I want to say, 360 and PS3. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy that Ninja Gaiden is still an existing series. You see a lot of these series die off over the years, and Ninja Gaiden is one that certainly died off and came back. So I'm happy to see that it's still around, but I personally am not super invested in these modern Ninja Gaidens, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll play them just for the sake of it. I don't know. It's possible. I'll consider it. The next thing, Indiana Jones. I saw Indiana Jones and I was like, "There's no shot they're announcing another game. Like this game just came out," and so immediately I was like, "Oh, you know what? It's probably a DLC or something." Or my other thought was, "What if it's coming to Switch too?" Unfortunately, it's not coming to Switch too. But it is a DLC. It's a story-based DLC, so it seems like there's going to be a side little story, which is pretty cool. I am actually quite interested in Indiana Jones, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I ought to watch the movies and stuff, all of them, before I go playing any sort of Indiana Jones video game. So I don't know, but I am kind of interested in this, and I will definitely play it if it comes to Switch 2. If it doesn't, then I'll probably play it at some point on PS5, but if it comes to Switch 2, I'll probably push it up in my list of things to play. The next game is another weird hack and slash brawler, almost like a Souls-like it seemed, Beast of Reincarnation. And I was watching this through, and I'm like, yeah, it's a game. It's another one of these Japanese weird Zen, like, I don't know, some weird anime fighting or whatever. And then I saw at the end the developer was Game Freak. I was like, Game Freak? Like, what the heck? Game Freak? Like, they're the Pokemon people. They don't make anything other than Pokemon. And that's not true. There have been a few things over the years that Game Freak have made. There was a RPG on 3DS that I can't remember the name of. There have been a few things, but they've basically always been on Nintendo consoles. And they're usually at least not too far from Pokemon. This game couldn't possibly be farther from Pokemon. What the heck is going on here? We got like a freaking, like this weird hack and slash, realistic looking thing made by the Pokemon people. There's like 5 of them working on that game. That's why Scarlet and Violet run terribly. Like, no wonder Scarlet and Violet run terribly. They were working all their effort on this game. No wonder the Pokemon games suck. Here they are, wasting all their development resources on this Xbox game. Like, what the heck, man? Come on, Game Freak. Get out here and fix your freaking Pokemon games before you go make another game. But I don't know. I just found it very strange that they were putting out a totally unrelated game on Xbox. But, I don't know. It's alright, whatever. You can do what you want, Game Freak. I can't blame you. I'm surprised they didn't take the 5 people from Creatures Inc. over as well and have them work on it too. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, it just seemed really weird to me. I'm actually very surprised that this is a thing that's happening. The next game, Clockwork Revolution. Clockwork Revolution, it started out, and it was an open world. It was in 1893 or something like that, 1873, I don't know. It looks a lot like BioShock, is how I initially... 1895, that's what it was. Is how I initially saw it. And, they started out, they were showing all this stuff. Then they pulled out the guns, and I'm like, okay, it's a shooter, whatever. It's not a big deal. It still looks pretty cool, whatever. But the trailer just started to drag on like crazy. They were showing all these weird time mechanics and just all sorts of shooting stuff. Like, just so much stuff I didn't need to see. Like, this just went on forever and ever and ever. Like, most of the trailers were about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. So a lot of them were about 2 minutes in this presentation. This Clockwork thing was 5.5 minutes long. 5.5 minutes! Like, who cares? Like... Dude, this should have been like half the length or less. Half the length or less. So I honestly, I was actually kind of interested in this game at the start, but as they just showed more and more, a lot of the stuff they showed I wasn't liking. They just went on and on and on. I lost all interest in this game. I lost all interest. So whatever. But yeah, I was just like, what the heck, man? Like, this trailer's like, you can go back and watch my reaction. I was like really annoyed. I was like, this trailer's been going on for like way, way, way too long. And I was gonna come on here complaining about it and been like, they had a 5 minute trailer in there. And then I was like, you know what? It probably wasn't actually 5 minutes. But I'm looking now and turns out, yeah, no, it was freaking 5 minutes. Anyways. The next thing was Grounded 2. I've not played Grounded 1, but I've got to say, Grounded does seem like a kind of an interesting idea. And I know someone who's very, very into Grounded 1. They've played many, many hundreds of hours in Grounded. So they were very happy about this. But, you know, this is another game by Obsidian. Oh, you know what? This was the other one that they were going to talk about during that after show thing with the extra direct. This is actually coming very soon, to July 29th. So this seems like a big year for co-op platformers, and a big year for Obsidian with Grounded. I know, you know, Obsidian's not a co-op platformer people, but, you know, you get what I'm saying. It seems like a big year for those things. We got another horror game, Chronos: The New Dawn. I don't know. It looked, you know, the helmet stuff. I was like, what is this? This is a Doom game? No, I'm kidding. It didn't look like Doom. But I did find it weird. The helmet looked a little strange. I don't know how anybody sees out of the helmet in this game. But you know, whatever. Chronos: A New Dawn. Yeah, you know, it's a game. It's a video game. It's a video game. Yeah, it's, you know, I don't know. It's a video game. Let's see. Bethesda, they are jerks. They once again teased us with Elder Scrolls, and then it ended up being Elder Scrolls Online. I know last year at Summer Games Fest, it came up and it said The Elder Scrolls, and then it kind of paused for a little bit, and it was like Online. I was like, oh, screw you. Every time they talk about Elder Scrolls, I think it's going to be Elder Scrolls 6, and it never is. Here we are, still waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. Now, I'm saying all this, but I'm probably not going to play Elder Scrolls 6 when it comes out, so doesn't really matter. I don't know. The next one, Aphelion by Don't Nod. They made Jusant. I know I've actually heard quite a bit about that on a couple of the podcasts I listen to. So, you know, honestly, this game looks amazing. I don't understand, like, this, it's incredible. It's this, like, you're in this snowy world, climbing glaciers and whatever else. You know, there's some fire involved for some reason. I don't know what's going on with this game, but it seemed really cool. I don't know what the actual gameplay is going to be like, but just the cinematics and stuff in this, like, cold, frozen world looked awesome. So I imagine you're like an astronaut landing on an ice planet is probably my guess as to what is the premise behind this game. But it seemed really cool. I've got to say, it seemed really cool. So I'm actually quite interested. I don't think I'm going to play it, but maybe at some point, you know, we'll see. We'll see. The next one, There Are No Ghosts at the Grand. It's another shooter. It's cartoony. It's, you know, I don't know what's going on with this game. There was a talking cat, if that's your thing. I don't know what's going on with this game. The next thing, another RTS. It's a lot like a 4-axis Civilization game, Age of Mythology. Age of Mythology has been out. I think this is a new DLC expansion for it, is what it is. Heavenly Spear. So yeah, Age of Mythology came out back in November, maybe, or December, or something like that. I think it was, I don't know, something like that. I think it was December. So that's cool. Mudang Two Hearts. It's another online shooter looking thing. You know, I don't know. I think, right? This is a shooter? Yeah. Another shooter. Cool, I guess. I don't know. I couldn't read the development studio. They got some weird text going on, so I don't know what that title is. Planet of Lana 2. I have heard of Planet of Lana. I've always been a little interested, and I'm really happy now that there's going to be a Planet of Lana 2. So I've put both of them on my Deku Deals list, and I'll probably end up playing the first one at some point. And so right now, I'm kind of excited for Planet of Lana 2, but after playing the first one, I'll probably be very excited. Fallout 76, Gone Fission. The Xbox Direct, before it started the countdown, like the waiting screen, was fishing in Fallout, and we didn't know, the people watching my stream and we knew it was fishing. I think someone mentioned Fallout, but we didn't know exactly what was up with it. And yeah, it turns out it's an expansion for Fallout, or like a DLC or something. Fallout 76, Gone Fission. There's another anime hack and slash thing, solo leveling, Arise, Overdrive. I don't know, man. Overdrive, whatever. A Nemo was really strange looking. I don't know. I saw it and I was like, oh, is this like Pal World? And I was like, well, it's obviously based on Pokemon, but is it actually the same thing? And no, it's some weird anime thing. Looks like Gotcha kind of thing. It's obviously another thing copying Pokemon. I don't think this is one that's going to end up in a lawsuit, though. So we'll see. I don't know. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. They actually brought out Tony Hawk for this trailer. He was talking quite a bit. I liked one of the things I liked from this trailer. They were showing the side by side of the old version. I think it was on PS1 maybe, and then the modern ones. They're also you can skate as the Turtles from TMNT. You can skate as I think Doom Guy was in here, right? Or was it Master Chief? No, Master Chief. Or sorry, no, Doom Guy. Doom Guy. I didn't, I hadn't watched the trailer in a while, but yeah, Doom Guy's in here, Doom Slayer. So that's pretty cool. Tony Hawk seems like the kind of thing that's going to be really, really fun and really weird, and I'm happy for people that like Tony Hawk. I personally don't have much interest, but it seems like a cool thing. A Fate's End. A Fate's End is a new indie game by the people from Spiritfarer, or behind Spiritfarer. I actually don't know the name of that studio. I don't know, but it's by the Spiritfarer people. I've went and put this on my Deku deals as well. This game looks nothing like Spiritfarer, to be honest. So that's kind of interesting that they're making something totally different, but it also makes sense, So it looks like there was some hack and slash combat, but with cards as a main mechanic. So that's pretty cool. Again, I don't know all the details here, and I don't think anybody knows all the details, but there's definitely people that know more details than me. Gears of War Reloaded. I've always been like kind of interested in Gears of War. I'm more interested in Halo and Doom, but Gears of War seems like something that I kind of want to try, at least the campaign and stuff. And I'm glad that they're remaking the first one. I'm actually really interested. I probably will buy this at some point. I don't know if I'll buy it on PS5 or what, but I'm not going to buy it when it comes out in August, but I probably will buy it at some point. Persona 4 Revival, I talked about this earlier. I'm thrilled about this game. It looks like it's nowhere near done, and it's not coming out probably until end of next year, at least. Could be even early 2027. But yeah, we know basically nothing about this game. I'm just happy that they finally confirmed it, and I'm just beyond thrilled. Like, I'm really so excited to play this game when it comes out. So I'm probably going to wait till we get a release date before I play another Persona game, just in case it's coming out earlier than I expected. And as soon as we get a release date for this one, if it's far enough away, I'll probably go play Persona 5 Royal, and then play this game when it comes out. Is my guess. That's probably what I'll do. Sea of Thieves Season 17. I wish Rare would just go make a good game. There's a bunch of wasted talent over there. I know Rare's not the same team they were, but I imagine some of that stuff is still residual, so I wish they would go make some cool thing, but instead, here we are on Season 17 of Sea of Thieves. So, I mean, it is what it is, whatever. Invincible Versus. This was a big thing towards the end of the Direct. I know a lot of people were very excited about this. I didn't even know what Invincible was, to be honest. So, I was like, what is this? And yeah, I still don't really know what it is, but it's a fighting game based on some comic book, so cool, I guess. I don't know. Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to Xbox, which is crazy. And they're also putting out Final Fantasy XVI, both coming to Xbox, which I didn't really see coming. Maybe other people did. I did not imagine this was going to happen. I imagine that this is going to come alongside the Switch 2 versions of, at least of 7 Remake. I don't know that 16 was coming to Switch 2. Maybe it will at some point, but I don't think that's been confirmed just yet. I know Final Fantasy VII Remake is supposed to come out in winter, so I'm guessing the Switch 2 version will also come out then. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not, but if not, I'm guessing that's when it'll come out. Final Fantasy 16 is apparently already available, so that's pretty cool, I guess, for Xbox people. I know most people that are interested in Final Fantasy probably already played it on PC or on PS5, but for anybody that hasn't, I'm happy for those people. And I will probably play through these Final Fantasy games at some point. I've played the first 2, so I've got a long ways to go. I'm more interested in the first 6, but I might continue on to the modern ones. We'll see. Keeper. Keeper looks like a little weird thing. It's a like a platformer action adventure. Actually, it's a platformer where you platform as a lighthouse, which is very strange. It's by the same people that made Psychonauts 2. I'm actually quite interested in Psychonauts 2, so I'm also interested in this by extension. And it's already again on my Deku deals for when it comes out. I'm pretty excited about it. So. Call of Duty Black Ops 7. I couldn't care less about Call of Duty Black Ops 7, but it is a big deal, so I'll give them that. And that was the last that was the last game, I think, right? I think that's every game announced. So the last thing to talk about in relation to Summer Games Fest is the the Xbox handheld. So, the ROG Xbox Ally X and just the regular ROG Xbox Ally are, in quotes, Xbox handhelds that are supposedly coming out this holiday season, I think is what they said, right? So basically, they're just souped up ROG Allies. From the specs and stuff that I've heard, they seem to be pretty comparable to the top model ROG Allies. So if you're somebody with a ROG Ally, then cool. If you're somebody with interest in a ROG Ally, then cool. But, it just... I don't know. I thought... So, first of all, Phil Spencer said that they didn't have plans to make the Xbox handheld. And to be honest, I believe that, because they probably planned this last second. There probably wasn't any planning going into this thing. They reached out to Asus, and they're like, hey, I heard you're making a new ROG Ally. Want to slap an Xbox logo on it and, have a marketing deal? And they're like, sure. And that's what we got. So, I mean, this thing is not really a dedicated Xbox piece of hardware. It's a ROG Ally with an Xbox button on it. Like, it's not anything new. You can play your Xbox games on the ROG Ally. You can play your Xbox games on the Steam Deck. You can play them on the Lenovo Legion Go. You can play them on a PC. Like, why do you need a Xbox ROG Ally X? Whatever. But it is definitely big news that this thing's coming out. I know they conveniently skipped over talking about the price. So that's very interesting, isn't it? But I know that IGN was reporting that based on the next most powerful or comparable ROG Ally, they're expecting this thing to be $800 to $900. I think $900 is what they said, actually. Which, yeah, $900, that sounds about right. I actually, when it got announced on my live stream, I was like, oh, shoot, it's going to be like $650. And yeah, it's actually probably going to be more than that. So, I mean, if you're somebody who wants a Xbox ROG Ally X, I'm not sure what's wrong with you, but go for it, I guess. I mean, I really don't think this thing's going to do very well. And, I mean, they tried to frame it like they're talking about, oh, over the last, 25 years, we've, done all this innovative stuff. We've really, we've been the innovators, the leaders of innovation in the industry. And we've, I'm like, no, you haven't. Shut up, Xbox. You haven't done anything valuable. The only thing that I guess they have innovated on, for the worse, was the Xbox Game Pass idea. Like, it just, every day there's new reasons for me to complain about Xbox. And this Xbox ROG Ally X thing, it seems completely useless, and it's going to be like $900. And it doesn't have physical media. Nothing's played natively. It's all being streamed and I mean, I guess it's kind of played natively. Well, no, it's being played natively. I guess I gotta say that, but it's just I don't know who's gonna buy this. It doesn't seem like there's a big enough market for this thing, but I don't know. They wanted to put it out, so whatever. I mean, who am I to judge? I mean, that's my whole point here is to judge, but you get what I'm saying. It seems a little stupid. And it's obviously going to be expensive. If anything, I'm almost happy that this ROG Xbox Ally X is happening, because now maybe some of the negative attention on the price of the Switch 2 will go away, because now people will be complaining about the ROG Xbox Ally X instead. So, we'll see. I don't know. It is what it is. It's, it's an Xbox handheld, kind of, sort of, not really. So, I'm probably going to end it there. I will probably talk more about the ROG Xbox Ally X next week. I'll talk a bunch more about the Switch 2, and I'll probably address some of the biggest complaints about the Switch 2 and let you know whether or not I agree with them. But when I'm talking to you next week, school should be over. I'll still have school-related things. I'll have final tests and stuff and review sessions for them. So I'm not really fully off, but I'm more off than now for sure. So that's good. And then the week after next, I will. Well, actually, even the week after next, I'll be finishing up the day the week after next comes out. So, and then the week after next, so 3 weeks from now, then I'll be all good and I'll not be very busy. At least for a few weeks, and then I'll have marching band and it'll be busy again. So I mean, I'm always going to be busy. There's always something going on. But it is what it is. I'm happy to do the things I do, and I'm happy that I can still do the podcast, even if it comes out 2 days late. I'm still happy that I can do the podcast when I can, and I hope that people listen to it. If you're somebody who is listening to it, by the way, thanks for watching through my 3-hour show. Man, this was a heck of a ride. My next longest podcast was like an hour 45 minutes, so this is like crazy. I've never had one this long, and I'm not planning on doing more this long. If I'm being honest, I'm kind of thinking maybe this is going to be a one-off thing. I didn't even really intend to go this long. I figured this was going to be like 2 hours, maybe 2.5, but it's actually ended up being closer to 3. Honestly, it's going to end up being like 2 hours and 50 minutes. So let's not make it 2 hours and 51. Let's get this thing wrapped up. So thank you all so much for watching. Those of you that watched. If you have any questions, any comments, anything you want me to answer, want me to read, anything. I still haven't got any emails. We're on episode 17, so let's get some emails in here. You can email the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO@gmail.com. You can also, if you're watching on Spotify, or I guess listening, if you're listening on Spotify or listening on YouTube, you can just comment right there on those platforms. I'll check those comments. You don't have to email. You can if you want, I guess. There's nothing stopping you. I'm not gonna pull up to your front door and with a AK-11, AK whatever. I don't know my guns, but with whatever. I'm not gonna pull up with one of those things and stop you. You can do whatever you want. But if you don't want to email and you're on those two places, you can just comment instead. I'll still read them out as if they're emails if that's what you want to do. While you're down in the description, you can also join the community Discord, and if you're not on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, wherever else you may be, if you're on one of those places, you can go subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am the Space Ginger Ninja on YouTube. Ginger Ninja is one word, GINJANINGA, sorry. GINJANINJA, that is how you find me. I am like a Mario RPG, with inverted colors. It's like green. That's my profile. And I just hit 550 subscribers. So thanks all for those who have subscribed. And if you haven't, I don't know what's wrong with you. You better do it real fast. Do it right now before the show ends. You got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.